Okay, this is the Between beta playtest group number 1. You are the first people to play the beta of the Between. That's exciting. I'm gonna do some introductory things, but before I do that, I want to have all of us introduce ourselves. I don't think this video is going out. I'm recording it just for my own use, but just in case it is going out, or if it ever does, I like to cover all my bases, and so I want to make sure. Go through all the information that we kind of need, that the viewer might need. I want us to introduce ourselves. When I call on you, just say your name, say the pronouns that you use, and then if there's any other details you want to give us, like how long have you been playing with the Gauntlet, just I don't know whatever kind of information you want to give us. My name is Jason. I use he, him, and I'm the principal organizer of the Gauntlet. Fraser.
Hello, I'm Fraser Simons. My pronouns are he, him, and I've been with the Gauntlet since I was a fetus. No, just kidding. It's only been like 3 years.
That's pretty long, though, really. 3 years is a long time. So,
yeah, it's gone by quickly. So many games.
So many games. Patrick.
Hi, I'm Patrick, he, him. Coming up right about 2 years that Tyler and I have been with the Gauntlet, which is pretty exciting. And I've played a lot of the Between before as well, so I'm excited to see where it's gone now.
Yeah, no, it's just it should be really similar, but with like distinct noticeable changes as well. So, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm the newbie here. I think Kevin, he, him, and I think it's probably been about 5 months. Haven't played a lot of games. I played a couple times one shots of Trophy and Storm Riders, which I had a blast with. So I'm looking forward to this.
If you've done Trophy, you should be okay with the Between. Then
I kind of figured.
Dark as fuck. At least the way I run it, as written, and the way I run it, it is very dark.
And it was.
Yeah, good. Tyler.
Hi there, I'm Tyler, he, him pronouns. As Patrick said, I'm pretty sure that this month marks our 2-year anniversary for being in the Gauntlet. I'm super excited to be playing the Between. I'm not going to play the Factotum because that's what I played in every one of them so far. So I'll be playing something different. And I'll say this, Kevin, you played 2 games I haven't, and I'm really envious because both those sound awesome.
Awesome. I want to begin by doing a procedure called CATS. CATS is an acronym that stands for Concept, Aim, Tone, and Subject Matter. It's something that I do before every game that I run in order to establish a baseline of expectations among the group, right? So the concept of the Between is you are playing essentially monster hunters in Victorian London, in a sort of like alternate dark Victorian London. You are monster hunters. The monsters that you hunt are sometimes literal monsters, like vampires and things like that. Sometimes the monsters are closer to like serial killers, right? Like Jack the Ripper, Spring-Heeled Jack type characters. The characters are... the game is called The Between because we kind of find the characters really kind of like in the middle of their profession and their career as monster hunters. There's an assumed history together already, like right at the start. And at least the history of like having done this like dark work. So we kind of see them in this moment, this sort of like liminal moment where they have like a dark, mysterious past that they don't talk about until they do, but mostly they don't talk about. And they have a future that is sort of being threatened by this character called the Enemy. The Enemy is something we'll talk about next session, but for now, just put a pin in it for now. It's also called The Between because this game at the player level asks you to function both as a player and advocating for your characters, but also in a very collaborative sense, like helping create the world. And indeed, there are many, many instances when I will pose questions to you to either to describe what things look like, to tell me about this detail or that detail. Okay, so it's kind of you as a player kind of live between these two states as well. I have more to say about some of the big like mechanical key differences in a bit, but I want to just say that bit for the concept for the CATS. The aim of today is I'm going to go over 3 kind of big ticket mechanical things that you need to know about before we start. and then we're going to create characters, then we're going to introduce characters, and then we're going to dive right into the first threat. The game is organized via these things called threats, which are the monsters that you're hunting. And every session, the DI, the DI is what the GM's called in this game. The DI introduces new threats and gives you recaps on the existing threats. Okay. We'll do the first threat, and we'll kind of start in medias res, kind of with you all kind of in the middle of that investigation. And then we'll just play until we have time, until the time is over. The tone of the game is quite dark. It has moments of like what I would call like kind of restrained. I don't know if romance is the right word. I don't think it is, but like a sort of like restrained kind of like levity, like where the characters, we see them kind of being together and sort of like relaxing in each other's company, but there's also these tensions between the characters. The game sometimes has this very languid feel to it, like very slow even. But then that shifts a lot too. Sometimes it can be very dark and immediate and visceral. So it kind of bounces between this dreamy, languid tone and this like very dark, sharp, bloody, intense tone. The subject matter is of particular note for the Between because these characters fuck, and a lot, and they are involved in lots of sexy business. Sex and sexuality is a major theme of the game. I will say that my preference, and indeed I'm going to put it behind a line, which means we won't be doing this in the game. We will not be having any what could be categorized as sexual violence to the extent that the characters are engaging in sexual or erotic activities. It needs to be consensual. But apart from that, I think the game can be quite like vivid in that way, right? So we don't have to like narrate the like encounters like that, but we definitely like frame it up right up into the doing, and then we kind of fade to black, right? But in any case, if you are not comfortable with playing characters who are occasionally called upon to be in sort of like very intimate erotic moments with other characters, this may not be the game for you. And so that is, and also one more subject matter note. We will be using the X card as our safety tool. So if something happens that is making you feel uncomfortable in an unfun way, because you should have lots of discomfort that is still enjoyable. If you're feeling uncomfortable in an unfun way, you can say X card, type it in the chat, or just press the X card button on the roll for your party. So that's the cats. Any questions about the cats before we proceed? If anyone has any very particularly triggering subject matter areas that you don't want to do in the game, I would ask you to like really interrogate that to make sure you definitely don't want to do it, because this game is pretty gnarly. But if you have something that you want to put behind a line or behind a veil means you prefer not to see it on screen. You can just message me separately, and I'll make sure to pass the word around. So that is the cats. Any questions about cats? Okie doke. Let me talk a little bit about the Between as a system. This game is powered by the Apocalypse, which means that it has at its core the DNA of Apocalypse World by Vincent Baker. It has drifted quite a bit from that, and I want to talk about some of those drifts. There are three big things mechanically that this game does that are quite different from other Powered by the Apocalypse games, and in one or two cases, really different from role-playing games in general. So I want to highlight those things now, just so you're kind of prepped in your mind that these are things that are going to be happening. The first is that it is the cardinal rule of the Between that all other things must flow back to. The cardinal rule of the Between is you must be restrained about talking about your character's past. And indeed, there are certain things on the character sheet called the Mask of the Past. If you look at those little elements, you must never talk about those things. Those things are only for you. And that includes out of character. So we start with the characters are really sketchy. We don't know much about them. You might know much about them. You can start thinking about it. You should be looking at your Mask of the Past and thinking about your character's past, but you must never share that either in character or out of character. If in character someone asks you about the past, you need to lie, or you need to act awkward, or excuse yourself from the scene because we do not talk about the past. That is a very, very intentional design goal of the game, which is when we learn about your past, it's like in a cinematic way. Like we basically, there's a moment in the game where you get a chance to actually share something from your Mask of the Past. And when you do, it's like a big deal, right? And we all get to see it at once. So restrictions on talking about the past. The next big thing I want to point out is this game is really interesting in that sometimes die rolls happen and then things get narrated. Like we narrate it, we show it entirely happening in the fiction. And then you as a player have the option of saying, no, I want to not do that. I'm putting on the Janus mask. It's a special mechanic. I'm putting on the Janus mask and I want to change this. And what that does is we then bump up the die result and we change the fictional outcome. So it creates this really interesting thing where we essentially get to see like a possible timeline, and then we rewind it and do a different timeline, right? It's very, very fun. As a result, I, as the DI, will always go very, very hard. Sometimes you might die as the result of a missed roll, okay? But I do that because it's fun to see. It's fun to watch your character die in a gruesome way. But you have all the power. You can say, no, that was great. I love it. It was very gruesome, but we're going to not do that. I'm putting on the Janus mask and we're going to change it. So that is the second big thing. And the third big thing, which we're not going to get into today, I don't think, but there is one phase of the game called the night phase where the action cuts back and forth between your character's scenes, the scenes that your characters are in, and this other scene taking place in the city of London on the same night. And so you'll be responsible for narrating some bits of this other scene. It's called the overscene. And then the scenes, you'll be responsible for your in-character scenes as well. The goal of doing that is to make it feel very cinematic, like we get to see different parts of the city of London. And what your goal is as a player is to connect this overscene with the main scene via visuals and themes, right? And, we'll talk more about it as we need to, but I just want to throw that out there as well. So the game has a very particular kind of structure. It is, I've done 35 alpha play tests of it. It was about, I would say it was about 70% done in the alpha. It needed a good 20 to 30% of tweaking. And I've made some of those tweaks, and we're going to see how they go with this beta playtest. This is not a public beta yet. I'm going to kick the tires on this for probably through April, and then get it all ready in May, and then have the public beta ready by June. So that's the plan. Cool. So that was a lot of talking. I apologize, but I hope it was helpful. Let's go ahead and talk about playbooks and character creation. So if you open up the PDF document in the folder called Character Creation Intentions, go ahead and pop that open. You might also want to pop open some of the playbooks from the playbook folder and start reading those little descriptive bits that are at the top of each playbook. If you've had a chance to look through it already, that's awesome. But I'll just give a quick rundown of like why you might want to play a particular playbook. The American, you play the American if you want to be kind of a fish out of water. You will stick out in London society. That's your whole kind of goal. You tend to solve problems with violence. It's also more of a lighthearted character. If you choose like the Tall Tales move, especially, it's a more lighthearted character. You might, if you want like a little bit more lightness in your play, the American's a great choice. Also, they're a werewolf. They're literally an American werewolf in London. So, the Explorer is the next one there. Why do I have these doc versions? Are you just throwing those in there, Fraser?
I I right-clicked to open in a different window, and then I guess it made it. It was unintentional.
The Explorer, that's the new playbook. This one has not been playtested yet at all, either in the alpha, or not in the alpha either. The Explorer is your sort of Alan Quatermain type character. This game is very directly inspired by the TV show Penny Dreadful, and so you might recognize some of these characters from Penny Dreadful or similar things. It's also inspired by like kind of 19th century action and horror fiction. The Explorer is your sort of like for Queen and Country, you know, British explorer, you know, like Alan Quatermain type character, right? Probing deep into the heart of darkness to blaze trails and name mountain ranges after themselves, right? That's the idea of the Explorer. You play the Explorer if you want to be very competent, very connected, and if you're interested in engaging with the sort of big bad of the story, which we call generically the enemy. You also play the Explorer if you're interested in critiquing colonialism. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, there's a very, very heavy critique of colonialism and imperialism built into the playbook. It's a little unavoidable. So you get to be both. You get to be the great, powerful imperialist, but you also get to simultaneously criticize the imperialism. So we'll kind of see how it goes in play, but that's my goal. So. The next is the Factotum. The Factotum is a servant character. One of the other characters will be your employer, and this character is very deferential to the employer and indeed to the whole group. They are still very effective, but you play the Factotum if you want to be kind of secretly effective. Like imagine like a sort of like almost like Alfred the Butler type character, right? Where you are kind of like knowledgeable and you're capable, but you sort of recede into the background a little bit. There's also a little bit of like, there's definitely like a little bit of like kink built into the Factotum playbook, where there's like a sort of unspoken sexual desire from the Factotum to the employer, right? So it's a bit of a like, it's kind of like a dom sub thing going on as well. It's real subtle, but it's there. But it's a significantly reworked playbook. It's really drifted really far from the alpha. So it was good in the alpha, but a lot of the fundamental structures of the game required it to be reworked significantly. The Mother is your Dr. Frankenstein character. It's called the Mother, but it can be a man or a woman. And the idea behind the Mother is you are secretly building a child who is your sort of Frankenstein type, ghoul that you're constructing from body parts. Play the Mother if you want to be very good at medical and anatomy type those. Play the Mother if you are interested in very gross scenes involving body parts and guts and shit. Those are great reasons to play the Mother. The Mother also has probably the most sympathetic backstory as well, as far as all the playbooks go, or the implied backstory. The Undeniable is your Dorian Gray character. They are like the most beautiful person there is. They use their physical appearance and their sort of hedonism to get what they want. They are villainous. They are a member of the team, but they are a villainous character. Their behaviors are villainous in nature. It's unavoidable. I had tried to build in a little bit of sympathy in the character in the beta, because in the alpha he was completely unsympathetic, but in the beta there's a little bit more like sympathy built in. The character is nonetheless quite villainous. So if you want to play it really dark and like with a villainous touch, the Undeniable is great. And the Vessel is essentially a witch. If you've seen Penny Dreadful, the Vessel is directly inspired by Ava Green's character in that TV show. Essentially, you are a person who has always had these kind of dark entities in your peripheral vision, and you have gradually learned how to communicate with them and harness their power to do magic. You also occasionally have sex with them. So those are the playbooks. That was a lot, but I'm trying to be very deliberate here. What what is everyone thinking so far?
I'm looking at the Explorer.
Everyone's excited.
Say that again. Was that you, Kevin?
Oh no, the American most appeals, but I hadn't said that. Someone else did.
Yeah, I was saying the Explorer is one that I was very excited about.
Please do. Yeah, that feels like a good fit for you, if I'm being honest, Tyler.
I'm thinking.
Okay, so that's American Explorer. What do we think, Fraser?
I'm thinking the mother, and I want to do it as a sort of like Hannibal Lecter type character, if that's okay. Meaning, like, I kill people, I eat people, and sometimes I take their parts and build a person as well.
Oh yeah, if you want to like explicitly murder people, I think that's okay, as long as you. I mean, you don't want to like become a threat, right?
Yeah. Is that okay with everybody though? Like, does it cross any lines or veils? Like,
no, I think cannibalism is fun as a dark story tool.
Okay, because I just started watching Hannibal, so.
As long as you don't, I think the main thing is just that you don't like do it in a way that like you would draw Hargrave House's attention, right? Like, because you still need to function in Hargrave House, right?
Right.
So it might be just a kind of like I don't know. I mean, I could definitely see how it would be interesting.
I could see how you need to be like very deliberate about who your character chose to kill. Like you'd have to really work to like hide it, keep it low key, sort of thing.
Right.
Oh, and just make sure, and Fraser, just make sure your idea does not conflict with the Mask of the Past. I mean, like, read the Mask of the Past and make sure your idea can fit into that, right?
Okay.
So yeah. So it's honestly best if we just don't talk about your backstory, right? So because it's against the spirit of the game and indeed the rules. Patrick, what do you think?
And I think the Undeniable. So there's been some work on there. I'll take a look at it again. Because it's either that or like the American for me. But if you feel strongly about the American, I'm cool with the Undeniable.
I think that would be great. I mean, I'm the two playbooks I'm most actually the one I'm most interested in seeing how it goes is the Factotum, but that's okay if nobody wants to play the Factotum, because the Factotum is most changed. But if we're getting the Explorer, that's still pretty productive. So, okay. But the American and the Undeniable have also had some changes. Honestly, the least changed is probably the Vessel, and the Mother. The Mother hasn't had huge changes either. So let's talk a little bit about if you want to open up that document that's called Character Creation and Tensions. Go ahead and pop that open, and then pop open the Character Keeper as well, the Google Sheet. I want to just give you a quick tour of the Google Sheet. So the first tab on the Google Sheet, once you all get it popped open there, is called Hargrave House. This is where we'll keep the sort of information that's general to the group, right? Including assets, which we'll talk about, and tensions, and as well as Hargrave House resources. Okay, that's all in that first tab. And then every playbook, every available playbook has their own tab on here. I want to show you a couple of things. Click on the American for now. You'll see that on the left, there's end of session questions. You'll highlight two. The first one's always highlighted. You'll highlight two more of those before we start playing. Those end of session questions, there are now 4 to choose from. You'll highlight 2, and basically those are things that you want to try to accomplish in the session, because if you do, you get an experience point at the end. Okay. The moves, just put an X over whichever move you choose. The text of the move, if you just hover your cursor over the move, a little note box will pop up that has the text of the move in it. And then if you scroll over to Mask of the Past and Mask of the Future, you will see someone's added checkboxes to my thing. If you scroll over, you will see all the different details for that. If you hover over the labels, Mask of the Past and Mask of the Future, it tells you how to use them. So for the Mask of the Past on the American, you mark the first unmarked box. You'll hover over, that note will pop up. For the Mask of the Future, it says, if no boxes are marked, you may retire to safety or obscurity. Tell the table what the future holds for you. Otherwise, mark any box you wish. So, and then a new-ish feature, we didn't really use it last time in the alpha, but we're going to use the hell out of it this time, is called personal quarters, and that's on the far right of the sheet. Personal quarters is a new thing. I made a nod to it in the alpha, but we didn't really use it for anything because I didn't really at that time know quite what it was going to do. But the personal quarters is, over the course of the game, you will be acquiring objects, mementos, different things that kind of like show your character's living space, right? You will note those things on your personal quarters as you get them. In most cases, they are not marked. They enter your sheet unmarked. If at any time it would be reasonable for you to have something from your personal quarters on your person, you can use it in a scene. And indeed, if you mark it, any action that you use the item for, you get to roll with advantage. Okay. Once an item is marked, it stays in your personal quarters. It remains as a bit of like color for your character, but it is no longer mechanically functional. Like it's not functional to get a die roll bonus. Okay. So that is a new thing. For those of you who are playing the beta, who play the alpha, this is the biggest change in the game, and you will see how it affects things as we go. Hopefully it doesn't fall flat. We'll find out. Yeah, so check out that sheet that says character creation and just go for it. Choose a name, choose a look. Right now, there aren't lists, so just make up a name and make up a look and just enter those. Every playbook has different move options. You may want to open up the specific playbook sheet on the PDF to find out what you get to select for your moves. Some of them start with a move and others get, but some of them you just choose all of them. And then you'll also choose an asset. The assets are only listed on the PDF of the character sheets. So you'll need to have that as well. But basically just get up to the point of step 5, and then we'll stop and introduce characters together. And if anyone has any questions or concerns, just holler at me. I'm looking at the chat now. DI stands for Detective Inspector. So.
I was right.
It's kind of a nod to the fact that the DI's kind of main function in between sessions is to like organize and keep track of the threats across the city in order to present it to you all. Kind of like a Scotland Yard detective, going to Holmes might be like, here's what's going on, kind of thing. Right? Some of the moves, if you take them, will tell you to write items in your personal quarters to start. It gives you a chance to be creative. Just like think of something that sounds fun and creative, and be specific, right? Don't put like, if you get who do we have on the table? If we get like if you pick the collection, Patrick, and you choose to have like, you choose to have a collection of perfumes, don't just put like men's perfume, like put, vetiver and sandalwood or something like that, right? Be specific. The American, if you choose the fastest gun in the West, I think you get a gun to start. And that gun is never marked. Like whenever you use the gun, you always get advantage dice on it. So. We're also going to have a procedure after character introductions where we get to add more stuff to the personal quarters, as you'll see. I'll opine a little bit more while you guys do this because I'm bored. Just ignore me as you wish. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying right now is not super important. But I will say that the Between has a strong emphasis on details. It is a game about reveling in sensory details. And it's a game about cinematic presentation of details. So we talk about what are your characters wearing? What do the fabrics feel like? What colors are things? We talk about details in the scene. Like, we linger on those details. That's important to the overall vibe of the game. And indeed, that's all mechanically codified. Like, if you're playing the game properly, you should, even if you're not like, you don't consider yourself like a descriptive oriented GM, you should be able to still make this happen. So. Other little changes from the alpha, you now only can get 3 conditions instead of 4. The overall spread of ability scores is lower. You don't get to pick ability scores. They are chosen for you. Some other little changes. The big change that was suggested by Fraser, and I've actually play tested already at the end of the alpha, and it works great, is the Mask of the Past doesn't just change your die roll to a 12+, it just changes it to the next highest tier. So even if you get like a 10, you might be inclined to still do it, right? To get the 12+ bonus. So.
All the moves are too good. I can't decide, Jason.
Yeah, from the alpha, you'll also notice that some of the things that used to be called assets in the alpha, I have recontextualized to be moves, and assets are something entirely different now. So.
Yeah, I really like the addition on some of them as paint the scene prompt, too. So good.
You said go down to assets and then stop, right, Jason?
Yeah. Okay. Once you get your assets done, we'll introduce characters, and that's a very brief process in this game. And then because you can't talk about your backstory, and then we'll do a personal quarters procedure, which is kind of like an extended introduction of the characters. You'll see how it works. It should be fun. It's something I do in Monster Hearts games. I've codified it for the Between. So.
Yeah, I like the move selections for mine too, because it forces me to choose what's important to me. Like, how important is it to you that you have access to your night work when you could be helping your colleagues? And I'm like, fuck you.
I think it'll be fun. There's I wanted there to be like meaningful choices in the playbook moves. That was my hope. So.
I think your Mask of the Past for this Explorer is very cleverly done. I like that it's coming from the boy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very clever.
Even just the choice to call that character the boy is very purposeful, right?
Yeah, it's nice. Nicely done.
Thanks. Once everyone's up to the point of having done their assets, just say so in the chat or let me know. Once you pick your asset, you'll just go to the Hargrave House tab and type that into the little assets box. Put their little descriptor to like what their profession is. Assets are NPCs that you don't have to haggle with to get them to do what you want to do. You just pay resources and they're yours. So.
Where do we put assets on the sheet again? I'm not seeing a
go to Hargrave House.
Oh, Hargrave House, right?
Yeah, because assets are available to everyone.
Right.
I would tell you that you will introduce your character by their first name and surname, but pretty much after that, we will never refer to them by their first name. Characters are always referred to as Mr. or Ms. surname. If we had a factotum, it's different. The factotum can be referred to by their first name.
I think we get to refer to me as first name since I'm Sir. So I'd be Sir Craven.
Oh, I guess they could. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, yeah, this is the first time we've had an Explorer, so I guess you would be Sir, whatever. Yeah, good point. The rest of you are Mr. or Ms. What I'm hoping as you're looking at the Explorer playbook there, Tyler, is that sharp dichotomy between all the present day playable features of the Explorer as compared to the Mask of the Past, which is so sharply different in tone and
yeah. I wanted that haunted, the things I've done sort of thing lingering over my shoulder. I like that whole concept of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a couple of instances where you can do that. Like one of the end of session questions is that classic dead-eyed monologue, right? Where you're talking about the darkness, right? The horror, right? All that. Yeah. So. All right, looks like Tyler and Fraser are ready. Patrick, are you good to go?
I'm trying to figure out look and name, but
okay, sure.
I've figured out other things, yeah.
Yeah, take your time, it's fine. Take your time. And since we don't have, I might just go ahead and just get rid of the two tabs that we're not using. No vessel is interesting. I don't think I've ever played this without a vessel, so that should be intriguing. Guess we'll find out how critical the vessel is to making it work.
Yeah, that is kind of wild.
If it just totally falls apart, we'll know how critical they were.
I just recently watched the what is it, the one with the Explorer playbook, that movie with what's his name, the Scottish famous guy in it. I just watched that movie and it was cool. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah,
Oh.
This game is somewhat inspired by League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It has notes of it. The three playbooks that are not presently available, they definitely add a more Jules Vernesian League of Extraordinary Gentlemen quality. Those playbooks are the Martian, the Volatile, which is like the Invisible Man mashed up with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the Girl, which is like an Alice in Wonderland type character. So those three playbooks are not, I'm not making those, I'm not doing those yet because I want to I want to playtest them kind of separately to see how they affect the overall tone of the game. So.
Just in real short, what is the Martian? When you said it, I was like, huh.
Yeah, the Martian is a person who was raised in high society in London, but who discovers in their young adulthood that they are an exiled Martian princeling. And their whole thing is like, as their Martianness becomes more and more apparent, more of their like innate Martian abilities rise to the surface, but it becomes more and more difficult for them to hide their Martian nature, right? So it's meant to have a kind of it's meant to have kind of a John Carter vibe to it. It's meant to have like touches of like H.G. Wells. It's meant to have touches of like those are the kind of the inspirations for it. So
that's neat. I could see like the Little Prince as an idea in it too.
Yeah, it's cool. Like that. Yeah, and it kind of like it all kind of leads up to this like, what will they choose? Like, will they choose to go fulfill their obligations on Mars, right? Which, you know, our sort of Victorian understanding, like Mars is the big thing, right? Like Mars is the thing we know, right? Where there might be people. Will they fulfill their obligations, or will they like stay, right? So it's kind of like Victorian Superman. All right, Kevin's good to go. So I guess we are just about set. All right.
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
Cool. We'll introduce characters, and then we'll do personal quarters, and then we'll take a break and come back and do the tensions, and then we'll get playing. So, all right, character introductions are necessarily very brief in this game because you cannot talk about your past. Introduce your character by name, look, what moves you have taken, and what asset you are bringing to Hargrave House. I'm going to go in the order of the sheet. Let's start with Kevin and Theodore Harrison.
Okay, sorry, I had that muted. Okay, yes. So I chose the American. His name is Theodore Harrison. His look, that was what we're also supposed to mention. He's short, stout. He has small circular glasses, and openly wears his pistol in a holster at his side. And let's see, I chose, well, he comes with the quickening, and I took the fastest gun in the West, and just kind of felt after I described him that was a necessary choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the last was Hargrave House, or asset, I guess.
Yeah, who's your asset?
Sally Cartwright, a whore.
Awesome. I may change the name Sally Cartwright in the final public because one of the threats is named Sally, so it might be kind of a weird fit, but that's okay. Good. Yeah, okay, great, awesome. And this group already knows, but I would probably also say like what the quickening does. Like the quickening is basically you might turn into a werewolf, and I don't think like, but importantly, the Mask of the Past like forbids you from saying to the characters that you are a werewolf, right? Mm-hmm. And fastest gun in the West, you essentially have a gun that cannot be marked. So in other words, whenever you use it in a roll, you always get to roll at advantage. So
yeah, I noticed that on the description of the quickening, it sounded fairly ominous in that he could actually just retire on the back.
Yes, yeah. But you have the Janus mask.
The mask, right? So I see how that's going to come into play.
Absolutely. Good. All right, let's go to the Explorer, Sir Craven Moore-Grieve.
Indeed, Sir Craven Moore-Grieve. He's in his late 50s, handsome, salt and pepper hair, dark grayish eyes, sort of. He's tall, well-built, has a little bit of a limp that he masks. He tries to keep that hale and hearty look about him. He's wealthy. He is a very well-to-do person, and he dresses well, but it's not like he's flashy. He's not someone who's going around in the avant-garde and velvets and all, but everything is impeccably tailored. I took the I guess I should look at my character. I took the I have the grand game, which that will come into play in third session.
Third session. Yep.
Yeah, which it has to do with the enemy. I took spoils, the spoils of empire, where I get my wealthiness from. Means our resources will go up to 6 instead of 4, and I'll replenish 1 at the beginning of every session, as I have considerable investments in the East India Trading Company. And I also took the artifact, which I think is one of the coolest moves I've seen in a while, where I have a memento from my expeditions. And it does things, and I stare at it and think about it to make it do more things. It is super cool.
Awesome. Have you have to detail that as soon as you get it. So what is it?
I'm thinking it is a carved totem, probably looking like a person. Probably, I'm thinking it's probably African.
Okay.
But it's heavy wood, dark wood. It could conceivably be swung as a club, but it's in itself is this carved person.
I would note that as heavy dark wood African totem.
Okay.
On your sheet.
Okay. And I think that's me. Oh, my asset. I brought in for my asset an antiquarian by the name Hieronymus Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Good, awesome, aristocrat daddy, love it. All right, let's go to the next character, our mother, Cormac McCarthy. Like the author Cormac McCarthy. Isn't there an author named Cormac McCarthy? Am I making that up?
That maybe that's where it came from then.
Yeah, he wrote The Road.
Is it Western?
He wrote The Road.
I literally, yesterday or 2 days ago, I watched one of those movies, so that's probably where that came from. I watched No Country for Old Men.
I'll tell you what, from the picture, he's hot as fuck. He does not look like Cormac McCarthy.
Well, maybe I'll change the last name. Whatever. It's people have names, right? It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, tell us about your Cormac McCarthy.
Yes, Cormac McCarthy is young, dresses upper class, is effeminate, sly, and slim. They're pretty kind of like pasty and brown haired, and I've got a picture there for anybody who wants to see. And I have the mandatory move, the child, and I have night work, which is it helps me out when we're going out on night house call type stuff.
Yeah, it's a beginning of session move that's rolled. It starts next session, but yeah.
Yeah, and my asset is Samuel Green, a resurrectionist / grave robber. I like the brackets there.
It's a definition. They're just grave robbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were colloquially called resurrectionists during this time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. And yeah, I think that's about it, right?
That's it. That's all we need. Yeah. Awesome. And then finally, Ulysses Eden's The Undeniable. Patrick.
Yes. Ulysses Eden's, he's fairly young, somewhere mid-20s, sort of beautiful, luminous, casually tousled look sort of thing. He is an actor in London. You may have seen like posters of plays he's been in before. He's certainly got enough fans and talks about it a lot. Let's see. Moves. I took an unquenchable thirst, which is that, no matter what happens over the course of an evening and the course of a day, no matter how like fucked up or messed up he gets, by the time the night falls and everything is ready to be fashionable again, he's together, he's physically perfect, he's beautiful. And then taketh away, which just off of the trigger line, when you destroy a DI character physically, emotionally, or socially, describe how it makes you feel and then roll. So, it goes from there.
They are villainous, as previously noted.
And then the asset is Hugo Delacroix, a playwright who's obviously obsessed with me.
Obviously. Good. I love it. All right. I think that's everyone. So basic introductions are done. Now, this is a new procedure from the alpha. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a moment to observe your personal living space in Hargrave House. You all work together. Collectively, you call yourselves Hargrave House because this is the name of the quite stately mansion in the Belgravia district of London, which is a very upper class district. You live in this mansion called Hargrave House, and you all have your own room. In the case of Sir Morgreave, you probably have several rooms, and we're going to take a minute to sort of see a little bit of what your space looks like in Hargrave House. This is a further way of introducing the characters that allows us to introduce the characters without violating the cardinal rule of not talking about your past. And so what I will do, you can follow along if you want, scroll down and take page 2 of the character creation PDF. I will pose a question about your character that everyone else answers. If you are the spotlight character, listen to what everyone is saying about your room. And then for every answer, if there is an item, an object of some sort that is implied or even stated outright in their answer, you get to write that on your personal quarters sheet, right? So as an unmarked item. So I'll probably be I'll kind of be a little hand-holdy as we do it because this is the first time we're doing something like this. But that's kind of the deal. These are framed as paint the scene questions, which of course is my not really, but increasingly famous play technique. All right, so for the American, who in this case is Mr. Theodore Harrison, everyone else who's not Theodore, what do we see in Mr. Harrison's room that indicates they come from more money than their rugged appearance would have you believe? And so, Kevin, you'll want to pay attention here and note items that make sense. Everyone else just think about it for a bit. And Kevin, I'm going to ask you, what would we be surprised to find in your room? And whoever has an idea first, just go for it.
I have an idea. I think that if you're American, maybe you have the typical Spurs on your boots, but they're handcrafted. You'd have to look carefully to notice, but they're signature ones, right? They're quite nice. There's something special about them, maybe.
Fancy silver Spurs seems like a thing you might want to write on your personal quarters there.
I think that we see in the quarters one of the more expensive and handmade the steamer trunks that actually stand up like they're almost a wardrobe, so that when you open them, they have the shelves to them, and exquisitely well built. One of those steamer trunks.
Yes. All right. And
I think going off the bespeckled, freckles? Is that what you mean?
Or bespectacled. I thought it was bespectacled.
I did too. You're muted.
You're muted, Kevin.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it was supposed to be spectacles. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I suppose you could be spectacled as well.
Yeah, why not? He's got freckles. There you go.
Well, I thought it was the glasses at first, so I'm glad that's true. So I think it's sort of a thing of we see him wandering around London. He's got these glasses, but they're sort of cheap, ding, bent, beat up a little bit. But like if you see him in his room and he's reading or looking at something, like I think he has this pair of just like beautiful, gleaming, like gold framed, sort of very expensive looking glasses that are obviously like custom fitted to him and things like that.
Nice. And that would have been very expensive in this time period, right? Nice. So just note those things. And yeah, we shall continue on. And well, so now my question for you, Harrison, is what would we be surprised to find in your room?
Let's see. There's going to be a photograph in a fancy, expensive frame that's turned down, meant to be not seen, of the U.S. president. Actually, why don't we go with the vice president of the United States?
I love that. That's great. I even like the detail of it being turned down. Like that's important for some reason. Yeah, it's good. Who knows what, but I like it. All right, great. And you can note that on your personal quarters as well. All right. Let's go to Sir Craven Mongrave. All right, everyone. What do we see in Sir Craven's room that shows Sir Craven has spent most of his adult life on dangerous expeditions?
Well, I think there's got to be the map of Africa that's got a lot of hand notations drawn in to detail, like
wall size map.
Unexplored. Yes, huge map with lots of little notations and maybe pins in there and the places he has been.
I love it. And that's fantastic fictional positioning for later too. Like you could use that map to research something or whatever, right? Could be fun.
I'm thinking something, I don't know how it would become mechanical, but I'm thinking that there's like a particular outfit that is like reinforced for these trapples, you know, like it's thicker, it can, it's meant to look upper class type deal, like a suit, but it's also like very practical and something that you can take on the move and stuff like that. Kind of like Sean Connery had.
In League. Nice. Maybe note that as like expensive, rugged traveling clothes or something like that. Fabulous.
I don't know. It's, again, I know it's not particularly fancy, but I'm sort of enthralled with the like Indiana Jones aspect. So I think maybe like a lucky hat, like a leather sort of out in the sun and in the jungle hat that's got all these like scars and chunks missing out of it and like sewed up seams where it's like something obviously just missed, like impaling your head or something like that.
I love it. There's a lot of implied story there. That's great. Lucky hat. All right. And Sir Craven, what would we be surprised to find in your room?
I think what you're surprised to find in my room is in one of my closets. If you open it up, there is a shrine to one of the African animist spirits.
Nice. Awesome. You can note that. And also I would note that the artifact from your move, that goes on your personal quarters as well. All right. All right. Our delicate, pretty Dr. Frankenstein, Cormac McCarthy. For the mother, what do we see in Mr. McCarthy's room that shows a fascination with human anatomy. Yeah, just dive in there whenever you're ready.
Perhaps a Lister knife, which is, I'm not sure. That's the like a bone saw. It was it was a huge knife used in field surgery at about this era. So I think it was allegedly the weapon of Jack the Ripper too. But
nice, good. Throwing you a bone there, so to speak.
I like a metaphor sitting out on his table. So how about like one of those models that you can take apart of the human heart and all the pieces in it. It's like very detailed and crafted and like glossy coated, so it looks almost like wet and visceral.
Nice.
I think we see several degrees, medical degrees from the fine schools, but on each of them, the name of our mother is strangely smudged, so you can never quite read the name, on all of the degrees.
I like that. I love what it pretends. That's good. All right. All right. Good. And Mr. McCarthy, or I should say Dr. McCarthy, what would we be surprised to find in your room?
I think Tyler read my mind a little bit here, but what I was going to say is I think I might need some help with this for the historical times, but I'm thinking that I have like either a birth certificate or a certificate from like an orphanage that has a stated legal name or something like that, and it is not Cormac McCarthy on it, and it's like hidden away.
Nice. Maybe, yeah, I would just call it like a sort of like I would just say birth certificate without your name on it. Because then you can be whatever you need it to be later, right? Okay. Cool. That was great. I'm loving this addition to the game already, by the way. This is fun. All right. And finally, Mr. Eden's question for the table for Undeniable. What do we see in Mr. Eden's room that shows how much they are worshipped and adored?
I've got a good one for this. I hate to keep going first, though. Someone on a...
Yeah, just go for it.
Okay. The trash bin in his quarters is full of perfumed calling cards.
That's good.
I think there's clippings from newspapers for like certain appearances or something like that. I'll let you define what the actual clippings are, but there's multiple clippings of some sort of prestige that feature you.
Like these are like appearances like public appearances Mr. Eden's has made? Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly. That have been like chronicled, and maybe there's like fangirls on the sides, like it's the Beatles or whatever.
Yeah, okay. And he's no newsworthy just because he's there, right? We don't believe you have any particular talent, do we?
I'm an actor. I am overflowing with talent.
It's good. Tyler, what do you think?
I think that on like the bureau and the dressing table, just carelessly tossed around are expensive gifts like jewelry and boxes that maybe even haven't been opened yet. Just so overflowing.
I love it. Let's be specific for Patrick's sake on the personal quarters. Like, what's one gift?
I think we see an expensive ring that is oh well.
What's specific? What kind of ring? Ruby, emerald, something like that?
I think that what color are your eyes? Green. So definitely an emerald.
Emerald ring. Okay. All right. And then Mr. Eden's, what would we be surprised to find in your room?
Okay. So obviously he's got like an extensive wardrobe and closet, and maybe probably like several freestanding wardrobes and a closet in the room as well. All these outfits and suits and things that, you know, he definitely legitimately took from costume shops and things like that. But I think in like the deepest back of one of the closets, there's a set of shirts. Like all the others, they're finely made and like obviously tailored exactly to him. But they're each torn and gruesome in their own way. Like one has blood spilling down it from obviously like the neck down. One has like a hole in it and blood spreading from where the heart would be. And I think most telling is one that has just blood stains that are flowing down the like sleeves from the wrists of the outfits.
I'm super here for this. That's great. All right. And yeah, if you can find a way to make that useful in the game, go ahead and note that on your personal quarters. And nevertheless, it's beautiful color for your characters. So go ahead and note that. And I believe that's everybody, right? So let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back. When we get back, I'm gonna I'll go ahead and just direct your attention to the final page on that PDF of character creation, which says tensions. You might want to go and just read that real quick, but basically we're going to come back and you are going to create some tensions or choose some from this list to kind of get us going. Tensions are basically, it's like the basis of your sort of social interactions with the other characters. They are, I would say, fully 30 to 40% of the gameplay is exploring these tensions in scenes. Okay. So they're important. Just think about like, your tensions that you choose should involve you plus one or more other characters. And we will have to make sure that everybody's included in at least one of them before we start. So, but we'll take 10 and be back in 10.
How many tensions will we put in, Jason?
You'll each do one.
Do one, okay.
Yeah. And we just have to make sure that everyone is involved in at least one of them. So, well, I guess you all will be because you're each doing one. That makes sense. But yeah, so yeah, you each do one. All right, so tensions. A good portion of the game will be spent exploring these tensions. One of the phases is called the day phase, and kind of one of your main goals in the day phase is to have scenes where you kind of like explore the tension. Exploring a tension can be as significant as like two characters or two or more characters having a conversation about the subject matter of the tension, or it can be something smaller, like a bit of like innuendo about it, or a some kind of like wordless transaction that hints at the tension below the surface, right? Anything that's like feasibly, that you can feasibly say like, yeah, that was explored in the scene. You get credit for it. You only get credit for it if you are the person who requested the scene, but obviously if you are in the scene with that person, you will want to give it your best, because you will expect that when it's your turn to request scenes and do it. Mechanically, what happens is we're going to write those. If you go to the Hargrave House sheet, we're going to write those tension statements on those lines that have little boxes underneath them on the left-hand side. And every time you get credit for exploring a tension, you put your character's initials in one of those boxes. And when the boxes are full, then that tension is considered resolved. And any character who managed to get their initials on the box or on the track gets an experience point. And then, quote unquote, to resolve it, all we do is everybody who's part of the tension just gets a chance to say, like, as a player, where do they think it stands? Like, okay, well, how do we feel about this now? And then we don't rewrite anything, but like we just kind of say as a group where we think it's going. And then later on, you can use the intimate move to unearth a new tension if you wish. So let's talk about tensions. Does anybody have a thought for the tension that they want to write down to start here?
I was thinking possibly the last one seems haunted by their past. I was thinking of doing that for Sir Craven, possibly.
Yep, seems legit.
Keeps carrying around this thing and beats people with it. What's up with that?
It's a perfect tension because you can't actually talk about it. Yeah, you can talk about how Sir Craven seems haunted, but Sir Craven can never say, "I am haunted." Right? Exactly. So, or at least can never talk about specific details of their past, right? Actually, interestingly, because the Explorer's Mask of the Past is another character, Sir Craven actually has a lot more room to talk about their past than other characters do, because you just have to not talk about the stuff on the Mask of the Past. But the implication of the Explorer's Mask of the Past is this is something that happened that they didn't even think about much, right? Like it was, it barely like registers with them, right? So, anyway, what you'll do, Fraser, is you will rewrite that in the third person on one of those lines. And note that you get credit for any tension you explore, even one that your name is not on. Okay. So, all right, who wants to go next?
I've got one. McCarthy seems regularly infuriated by the behavior of Edens. I must show them they're more alike than either of them wants to admit. Does that seem good with you, Chance?
And that's one that involves 3 characters, so it'll be a 7-box tension. Okay. So we'll ungray 2 of those boxes. If you want to put that on the second line there, Tyler. rewritten in the third person, of course. All right, who wants to go next?
There's so many that could work. I mean, this it seems like I'm obligated to put this one here. I guess Dr. McCormick, is that what we're going with?
I think we're going with
Dr. McCarthy.
Dr. McCarthy.
MacArthur is hiding something from the rest of us, and I will ferret out the truth of the matter.
I have no idea what you're speaking about.
I must be mistaken then.
What about the one with the shirts, with the blood on the shirts, huh?
Bloody shirts. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's true what they say about the Americans.
Been in some really intense plays.
All right, awesome. So Kevin, just rewrite that in the third person on one of those lines on the third line there on line 11. All right, Patrick, what do you think?
I think I find the ways of Mr. Harrison to be strange and unsettling, but intriguing. I learn more from them, though they consider me a nuisance. And I think it's the sort of like the rough edges and abruptness, and I'm all about like smooth and fitting in and greasing all the wheels around me sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. Love it.
I also like that sort of, though they consider me a nuisance, the sort of foppish usefulness around like a person who's serious or angry or trying to get things done or things like that.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, Patrick, go ahead and just write that in the third person on the line 13 there. And if you all just, when you're done writing, if you'll just click off of it, because we can't read it if you stay clicked on the cell. So. And with that, tension's done, characters introduced, we begin playing. So I think I want to begin this. I mean, I know how I want to begin it, but okay. So something has been in the news lately. A washerwoman named Clara Yarbrough was found dead near her flat. What was most interesting about the body, poor Ms. Yarbrough, is that her face had been carefully removed. Surgical precision. No face, just muscle and eyeballs and teeth, bone. This, of course, got Hargrave House's attention because, it's clearly some kind of depraved individual on the loose. One of you has a connection, actually, to Miss Yarbrough as well, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But Miss Yarbrough was found dead. And people are already saying that the killer must be Old Sally No Face. You know Old Sally No Face. The kids sing a little rhyme about Sally No Face whenever they're playing their games. And what the kids do is they put their hands over their faces like this, like their face is a mask, and they say, Poor old Sally, trapped in a fire. Her looks are gone without a trace. If you're lovely with fate most dire, she'll come and take your lovely face. Ah! And they scream, right? And the kids are doing it, right? You're seeing it. People are almost like there's a morbid fascination with Miss Yarborough's murder. One of you has a connection to Miss Yarborough. I have an establishing question that I want you to think about. I think it's going to be for Mr. Edens. Mr. Edens, you have a history of some sort with Ms. Yarborough. Think about what it is and let me know at some point today. You all have decided to begin an investigation, and your preliminary investigations have told you that Ms. Yarborough liked to spend her hard-earned washerwoman shillings at an opium den in the Whitechapel district of London. The Whitechapel district is not a good district. It is filled with criminal element, Sir Craven. It is representative of the rot at the heart of the city. This opium den, a known haunt of Clara Yarborough. And so, having learned that, you're all thinking, perhaps we go and we see if anyone knows anything about Ms. Yarborough. Can help you get closer to who the killer is. And so I think we see all of your characters entering one by one into this opium den. It is a dark space. It's run by Chinese immigrants, a woman named Mrs. Chang in particular. There are people lounging about on mats, smoking their long pipes. And I'd like to ask a painting scene question for the table. Everyone, if you could answer, that would be great. What do you see as you step into the opium den that tells you that this addiction doesn't know social class? What do you see that is evidence that both the poor and the rich mingle in places like this? Think about it for a moment, and when you're ready to give your answer, also say what you look like as you kind of step into the opium den.
I'm ready.
Go for it.
So I think I look like, let's see. I have like, since it's night, I try to look a little dangerous. So above my like brown tailored suit, I also have like a leather jacket that is covering me close. And I think as I come in and notice perhaps to the left, there's like a selection of alcohol that you can purchase, and it ranges from very cheap to extremely expensive. And the expensive stuff is somewhat drained, showing that it's been of use.
Nice. Who wants to enter the scene next?
I think Mr. Eden steps in. He's got like shining polished dress shoes that sort of step over the like dirty threshold. He's wearing like a bright crimson brocaded coat with like a velvet collar. It's more on the end of a frock coat, sort of longer, which is a fashion that's, it's still in, but it's starting to fade out as coats get shorter and shorter. He's got a very like lacy sort of jabot at his neck rather than something simple like a cravat or a tie. And as he steps in, I think he like catches eyes with the woman that's sort of working the door a bit. She's got a jar in front of her, and you can see in it there's all these like wadded up banknotes. There's like dirty sort of grimy coins, and also in there are just like bright shining golden rings, or someone's like diamond earrings that they took off and threw in the jar to act as payment.
Nice, I love it. Who's next in?
I think I can enter at this point. So Mr. Harrison enters. He's got a large overcoat on, and he steps into the opium den of Mrs. Chang, and he seems strangely familiar in that he removes his coat and knows right exactly where that's meant to be hung. And he sort of glances about to see if anyone noticed that. And the camera sort of pans again over to Mrs. Chang, and there's an individual sort of settling up his debt there, and it's clear that whatever he went through was very expensive, and he pays a lot of money over. And then as he leaves, another person comes up and pays just a pittance, pennies. So it's clear that there's almost like a sliding scale here. What's going on?
Pay what you can. I love it. It's good. Sir Craven.
I think we see Sir Craven walking in. He's, dressed practically. But with him, he has a walking stick that's made from walrus ivory, scrimshawed up with the wooden handle, and it kind of makes that tap as he comes in. And squeezing in the door behind him, we see a very shabbily dressed person, kind of wild-eyed, as he moves up to Mrs. Chang to say, I did it, ma'am. I got it done. She smiles. You did well, and hands him a little ball of opium as he rushes back to find his mat.
Nice. What was our social class detail? I think I missed it.
That the poor can come and do duty.
Can do tasks. Yeah, that's good. Good. Before we go any further, I forgot to mention, you all need to highlight 2 more of your end of session questions. These are things that you would like to be seen doing at some point in the session so that you can get experience points. You're unlikely to get the first one, the resolve a threat one. That would be pretty unusual for the first session, but you can definitely try to angle for the other 2. Give you a moment to think about that.
I have mine. I'm going to go with you. Did you use your loyalty to Her Majesty to justify your brutal actions? And did you give a chilling, dead-eyed monologue about one of your incursions into the heart of darkness? Which, God, I love that one.
It was kind of made for you, Tyler, in a lot of ways. So.
I think I'm going to keep it simple for the first session. Go with the first 2. Did you express a clear preference for the beautiful over the mundane? And did you secretly show your vulnerable side to someone? Ooh, wow, words.
Nice, good.
Oh, dude, did you shoot down an idea because it wasn't rooted in science? And did you put your hands in a pile of guts and love every moment of it?
Can you tell what kind of scenes I want to have with that character?
I hadn't seen that one, and that's beautiful.
All right, Mr. Harrison has, did you stick out in London society for all the wrong reasons? And did you use violence to solve a problem?
All right. So, Mr. Harrison, you seem to have hinted that you know your way around this place. What's your first move when it comes to investigating Clara Yarblow's disappearance?
So I think I would approach Miss Chang, and when she motions to my usual spot, perhaps he tries to ixnay, don't indicate that that's not cool, and he would begin asking. It was I forget the name of the woman now. That had the face removed, but
Clara. I'll type it in. Clara Yarbrough.
Yeah, he would begin right away asking if when was the last time Clara was in.
Mrs. Chang is an older Chinese woman. She kind of sits on a bar stool, like kind of near the entrance of the the opium den, but like kind of in a corner as well, so she has a good view of everything. And I think there's even like a mirror behind the bar that allows her to see like more of the room, right? So she's got her eye on everything. And I don't think that this is the kind of place where we swap names, and so she may not know Clara's name, but she will call you the American. She says, the American. Who are your friends?
These are colleagues of mine. I'll take the moment to introduce. This is well, of course, this is Sir Craven.
I don't need to know anyone's name. In my line of work, it's best if I don't know names.
My apologies. I'm already sticking out in London society for all the wrong reasons. I
don't know if this counts as London society, but
well, it's a society of sorts.
A society.
This is an explorer friend of mine, and a physician, and an actor friend of mine.
And they all walked into a bar. Where is this joke going?
We're conducting an investigation. I'm sure you heard about the gruesome murder. I guess was happened that day or that night.
It would have been like the day before.
Yeah. And as he's saying this, he's sort of reaching into his pocket, not with his gun hand, the other hand, and he's sliding a coin out onto the table and sort of pushing it in, leaving it there underneath his hand, and he will nonchalantly lift his hand up, revealing the coin, and point out that we're looking for any information as to where her whereabouts may have been prior to the unfortunate event.
And this is good. I think that I would like let's do a roll. So this is a night phase for all intents and purposes. We're not doing the overseen portion of the night phase, which I'll discuss later, but it is nevertheless, for every other purpose, it's a night phase. If you all want to go ahead and just open up the reference sheet PDF. And the reference sheet PDF tells us, the first page gives us our basic moves. We have 4 basic moves: the day move, the night move, the information move, and the intimate move. The night move is not, or the night move is what's used at nighttime during the night phase. We will not be using the day move, but the others are available. So let's talk about the move here. When you do something risky or face something you fear, name what you're afraid will happen if you fail or lose your nerve.
Interesting. What I'm fearful of, so I'm guessing I'm supposed to do that now. I'm fearful that she's going to blow my cover and indicate that she knows me.
I think it's worse than, and so per the move, I have to tell you how it's worse than you fear.
Okay.
I think it's worse than that even. I think she actually has something to hide herself, and this will turn into a much more hostile situation.
I see.
Now I have to ask you, do you wish to continue? Or do you want to back down?
No. I think we need to continue.
So go ahead and I think roll with presence. Presence is the stat we use for like social charm-based kind of things.
Okay. Now I just will type a 2 into the D6 and then add 1 to it. It doesn't.
You don't have to add anything. Just roll it, and then we'll just add it after you roll it. So.
Okay, 2 there, and then submit. Right.
Yep.
Ooh. So that would be a 4.
A 4. So now bear in mind, I have full control of the narration right now. I will narrate to a certain conclusion. You may choose to use a Janus mask and get a better result, but it's up to you after you hear what I narrate. You lift your hand off the coin, making it very obvious what you want. And she kind of smiles and says, Oh, Mr. Harrison, revealing she knows your name. You must think I'm a cheap date. Hmm? And she kind of like leans back and she says, I regret to inform you and your friends that we're closed for the evening. We are not taking any more patrons this night. And you also will, out of the corner of your eye, you'll see a pair of her men. They must be family relations, presumably, but I mean, or just distant cousins or something because they're Chinese as well. And they have a young, pretty woman, a whore perhaps, and they are leading her to the back of the establishment. But she's saying you all have to go. What do you do?
All right, he's not going. I'm not going to be leaving. That's not going to happen. Okay, so I know my options. The use of the mask would shift that to like a partial success,
Yeah.
Which means I narrate what happens, but
no,
I still
narrate it, but it'll be more favorable for you, right? So you kind of fundamentally succeed, but just a complication.
Okay, yeah, I'm not comfortable with us being extricated here. This is our big lead here. Yeah, okay, sure. I'm curious to see how this works. Let's go ahead and use the mask.
So what you'll do for now, take a look at your options. I think for the American, the only let's see.
I think it's Mark the First.
Yeah, it's mark the first of the past, or on the future you can mark any that you wish. So it's your choice. But go ahead and take a look at that. I'm gonna continue with the move here. So it's a 7 and 9 instead.
Okay.
I think what she says after she gets the coin, she leans in and says, I may or may not know who you're speaking of. And I may or may not be able to say anything about what I know. But so much can be learned in life from body language. And her body language is to turn and look at a couple of men who look like they don't look like her men. They look like, just some locals, some Whitechapel locals, some rough dudes. They are carrying something between them to the back. Enjoy yourself, gentlemen.
Thank you. And I'll take that opportunity to make sure that the rest of our group sees what she pointed out and head in that direction.
And indeed, Dr. McCarthy, you see the men carrying something. It's a body. You know what a body looks like wrapped up in a tarp. There are two men definitely carrying a body towards the back of this establishment down a little hallway. What do you do?
Called out. I will indicate to my colleagues what I see, but I definitely dash forward to pursue them. I definitely can't head them off at the pass or anything like that, right? I would just be able to pursue them.
Are you trying to do you care if they see you, or are you trying to be sneaky or what?
Let's cause problems. I want them to see me, and I want the indication to my colleagues is sort of hey, y'all will back me up, and we'll see if that happens.
Before you do that, I do want to check in with the other two characters and find out how they react to your actions. Mr. Edens, when you realize it's about to happen, what are you thinking, or what are you going to do in the scene?
I think I'd be looking around for like some way that I could take advantage of the chaos that is surely about to start as like they start rushing forward to question and accost these men. Whether it's some like opportunity to steal something from her or whether I see something, I'm not sure.
Maybe fire off the information move. Sounds like
yeah, I like that.
So let's read the information move. When you conduct research or attempt to gather information, which is what it sounds like you're doing, roll. I think it's going to be with probably with. It depends on how you're doing it. Like, are you just kind of observing or talking with people? What are you doing?
Let me look at the questions real quick. I think observing. Like he's really good at reading body language, so he's just waiting for that moment when something looks interesting or someone looks distracted.
All right, let's go ahead and get the roll on the table. Roll with reason. And Sir Craven, what will you be doing?
My intent was to kind of walk through looking at these patrons to see if I see someone I think would know Yarborough. Primarily, I'm looking for women who look like they're in uniform of, houses. You usually can tell the servant class. Certainly I can. And, that sort of idea of seeing one who would know her and be willing to gossip with me.
I love it. You can roll with roll the information move with reason as well.
Okay.
And so, Dr. McCarthy, we'll come back to the information moves. Dr. McCarthy, this is a risky action for sure. Let's read the move again. When you do something risky, name what you're afraid will happen here if you fail.
I'm afraid that they will turn their attentions to me and beat me.
I think it's worse than that. They will turn their attentions to you and they will kill you. Do you wish to press forward?
Oh, absolutely.
Roll plus, I think it's vitality, actually.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to be magenta dice. Shazam. Oh, that's no good. That's 4.
I'll take the scene. How do you approach it? What's the initial approach here?
I would chase after them and intercede, calling after them and say, you better stop. The authorities are on their way. They have been called, in fact.
I think when you run back there to do that, I think one of them turns to you. These are like two big, like broad-shouldered, rough, square-jawed looking guys, right? Sloped foreheads. They look ill-educated, and we could fit 2 of you inside one of them if we had to. One of them, they drop the body. They just drop it. And then you're now at this point like in a little hallway. It's just 3 of you. They drop the body, and the one raises his hands and says, "Oh, citizen's arrest. You got me. You got me. We got Franklin. Yes, Henry, I'm afraid we've done got." And they're just kind of taunting you a little bit. And then I think they just jump out and grab you. And they pull you into a side room in the rear of the opium den. And we hear just the familiar sound to you of metal cutting through flesh. We never see you again, but we do see the blood pooling from under the crack of the door.
I don't think so.
Go ahead and mark your Janus mask and we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Let's go to the information move. What was your result, Mr. Edens?
Oh, I definitely got a 4.
Good. Let's read that because I think there's there's no miscondition on that. I think as you are You said you were looking around and trying to. What were you looking for specifically?
Immediate, given the situation, something like expensive / interesting that I could steal. But if it looked like I recognized someone that I didn't expect to be here, I would run to them instead. Whatever you feel like's in the scene.
How familiar are you with opium as a recreational substance?
Well, I mean, it's an enhancement to the creative process, I think. Obviously, it's a detriment to working on stage, but when one is in the ideas phase and trying to conceptualize the next project, I mean, nothing could be more important.
I'm going to give you a condition for your missed roll. The condition is going to be opium addiction. I think that being here, being around the opium smoke, being around these people smoking, I think that addiction is rising to the surface. And I think you even grab a pipe.
Is there like an ongoing mechanical to conditions, or it's
you just
like
note it on your conditions, and basically anytime that I think your opium addiction would hinder you on a roll, you roll a disadvantage.
Nice, lovely.
But otherwise, you don't really learn anything important.
I don't think there's any like resistance to it. Like he's looking around, sweeping carefully for that information, and just sees like a loose pipe leg somewhere with like an ember stick next to it, and he's just sweeps right by and into his mouth and inhale.
Nice. What about you, Sir Craven? What was your roll?
I got a 7.
All right, I think you get. Let's see here, 1 from the list.
Mm-hmm. If I can ask, what do I run across? Who do I run across? Because I was trying to find servants that might gossip.
Yeah. Let's say it was, let's say it's a maid named Elizabeth of the house. Oh, it should be like of House Anglesey. It's your accountant's maid.
Oh, wonderful.
Your accountant's Simon Anglesey Clark. That's a thing from the Alpha, but it's not important right now. But no, a maid for the Anglesey family.
I will.
You know her, in fact.
I'll move over to her. Elizabeth, I didn't expect to see you in this sort of establishment.
Sir Craven, I certainly don't come here very often. A friend of mine invited me, and I realize now that I don't know where she's gone off to. Oh, look at me.
Yes, silly thing. And I'll have squatted down next to her. I was wondering, perhaps I'm looking for someone, or probably more accurately, information about someone. I know where she is. Clara Yarborough. She frequented this place.
Yeah. I may have heard something about that, Sir Craven. Yes, possibly.
And I think I'm going to do my question as what happened to you recently? Tell me, Elizabeth. What have you heard?
She says, if I tell you, you please have to promise me, Sir Craven, that you won't say anything to Mr. Anglesey Clark.
Of course not, Elizabeth. What happens in the garbage deserves to stay there, I suppose.
Well, I saw her. Well, I saw her leave with someone yesterday from here. I don't always come here, of course. I just happened to be here yesterday or the day before as well. I don't know.
Yes.
It was the weirdest thing, Sir Craven. She was with a boy. No more than 12 or 13.
In this place?
Yes. A fancy lad, too. Looked very, very stylish, very fashionable.
Had you seen this boy here before?
No, but
frequent visits.
I've only been here twice.
I'm sure.
So I couldn't say if it's some, but the boy definitely stuck out, and it's strange for Clara. I don't know. I think the boy was paying her for something.
I see.
But I don't know why a boy like that would need a washerwoman. I mean, his clothes look far too fine for the kind of work that Clara does.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't think there's much of a pursuit on that. That's probably the good clue out of that.
Good clue, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so thank her and take care.
I'm going to resolve the move with Dr. McCarthy, and then I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Harrison. Dr. McCarthy, so they do stop, and I think what happens is they kind of like throw the body into this side room, okay, because they feel like they've got caught or something, and they're just like, and they're thinking they want to run. They like think that maybe they truly are caught, right? But they don't run before one of them just like fucking punches you in the ribs. I mean, just a big solid like bam, like in the ribs, and you go crumpling down. But they left that body there and they run out the back. But you're taking the condition bruised ribs.
Okay, sounds good.
What will you do after you catch your breath? And this might be a good time for Mr. Harrison too. Mr. Harrison, what are you doing as well? Because you were kind of aware of what was going on back there as well.
Right. As soon as he took off, I've certainly got his back. So
absolutely. So you would come up and see Dr. McCarthy like hunkered over, like holding his side, right? and you'll see those two guys running out the back, and you'll see the package they were carrying just in this little, like it's almost like a little mop closet or something, right?
I put my arm around the good doctor and help him in to the room where they tossed the goods, and I'll sort of stand there at the door and while the doctor does his work.
Yeah. So Dr. McCarthy, what do you do?
If there's somebody watching, I can't take I think I just kind of laugh, and I know there's probably like the hallway is lit by like candles or something like that. Mm-hmm. So as I hear the steps behind me running, I blow out the one that is closest to the one that like is shedding some light on that room. Yeah. So hopefully they only see me like doubled over in pain and stuff, and then I kind of use my pain as a shield, so you don't pay attention really. But I come with you, and perhaps later I can come back and collect the package or something like that.
I think Mr. Harrison was actually giving you an opportunity to look at the body by standing watch.
I think it was all wrapped up, so this would give us a chance to see.
He's not watching you. He's watching like
right.
I'm more trouble.
My back is to you. You can do your work. I'm making sure nobody else
all the guts you want.
Okay. Well, I'll dramatically unzip very slowly from the head down. Oh, you're muted.
It's just tied, so you can just kind of undo it, right? It's a woman, recently dead, based off her color. And I would say very, very pretty.
Also has a face, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I probably couldn't do like surgery well. It's just like, it just came like that. But is there a way that I could discern more information about the body?
You could do the information move. Yeah.
Okay, I will attempt that.
Yeah, go for it. With reason, I would guess.
Reason.
Get that on the table. I'm going to go back over to Mr. Edens. Mr. Edens, you're smoking up. You are.
I'm watching the exit.
Indeed.
I'm being very responsible.
Indeed. Who are you smoking with? Just generally speaking, like a man, a woman, a rich, poor.
I think a man, poor but not like filthily so, just like not very expensively dressed sort of thing.
Yeah, I think he's high enough to like look at you and say, "Has anyone ever told you you are a very, very beautiful man?"
No, how very kind, sir. Please tell me more. What do you find beautiful?
Well, your teeth are clean. Your hair is combed. Your skin is not bespeckled. You look, well, you look like you've stepped off the pages of a periodical, a drawing, a woodcut drawing.
I mean, that's nothing really. That's all just soap and color and fabrics and paints. Like reach over and sort of push his hair like out of his eyes, off his forehead. See, you could be rather beautiful yourself. Just a little work, a little effort, a little here, there.
Yes, a little bit, I suppose, but not good enough for the dapper boy, not like you.
I do appreciate a good nickname, but I haven't heard that one before.
Oh, I figured you were here to speak to him. The lad, well-dressed lad, always looking for beautiful people, men and women alike, for some sort of exhibit.
Well-dressed, you say?
Oh, yes.
Oh. Is he here? Just coming here?
Haven't seen him around tonight, but he pops by periodically, talks to the lovely ones. Not me, not lovely enough. You might be able to stick around long enough.
So, just a wealthy admirer goes around in expensive things and collects beautiful ones?
A literal boy, 12, 13 years old.
Oh. Ooh, how scandalous and fascinating.
I've heard of more perverse things happening in this city, that's for sure.
Oh. Spare some of those to me.
I have a feeling you know a few of those things already yourself, sir.
Well, how about this? You tell me your favorite, and I'll tell you where you're wrong.
I think he hands the pipe over to you, right? We'll kind of cut there. So, Craven, you have got I feel like you're the type who'd probably figure out we've got the run of this place. This is we've figured out what we need. Maybe you go check up on the others. I don't know, but what? Well, actually, let me cut back and find out how the information roll went. What'd you get on that, Dr. McCarthy?
I got a 10.
Okay, nice. So yeah. So if you wish to, so what do you do, Sir Craven?
Yeah, having looked across and I see Eden's over there indulging, I will kind of give a little sniff of and move back to that hallway where I'll see Harrison there in the doorway of the closet. Mr. Harrison, have we any troubles?
No, all themes under control for the moment. The good doctor's in here with looks like a body. Those who may be responsible for the body have took off out the back door. If you'd be kind enough to stand and watch this door, maybe I could go and see where they have run off to.
Yeah. I'd also like to suggest that before we go too much further, I'd like to suggest that the men on the run and the body, the presence of the body, might be sufficient duress to possibly trigger your quickening, Mr. Harrison. So why don't you go ahead and roll your quickening move?
Yikes! All right, that is.
We'll read that out. You live with a curse that causes you to become savage, even feral, to the point where your body physically changes. This tendency can happen in moments of duress and is particularly strong when the night is nights of the full moon. We do not have a desk phase, so we don't roll for the full moon, but I do think this is sufficiently stressful. Roll with composure, please.
All right, I think I've got one of those. Let's see. Oh no, composure 0. Great. All right. So now, do I clear before rolling the 2d6? Just
it doesn't matter. I mean, as long as you know which dice are going down, you can clear them, or I think you can click on them too and re-roll them.
Oh, okay.
Press that green button to re-roll selected.
Oh, it did. I don't know why I rolled 4. Let me just clear all those.
Yeah, just clear them. Roll 2 more.
Five. We have a problem.
Looking good. American is going down hard, folks. Yeah. Let's read the move. On this, you lose control. Retire this character by the end of the session. You describe what it looks like. I mean, I think it's probably like, I mean, obviously you're gonna use the move here, or the Janus mask, but I would like to suggest that this, like, what's the initial hints that you're wolfing out right now? Like, what would it look like as you start to think about those men on the run, right?
Yeah, maybe as Sir Craven approaches and begins asking me about that, it occurs to me that there's some prey on the run, or some right, and he is having a difficult time explaining what happened. All that we can sort of rewind that, and it sort of comes out more as some stifled mumbling, and then outright growling and sweating. He's sweat beading on his forehead, and he's probably just merely point to the room and then rush out the door.
Yeah, good. Mark the drain condition, but you are good, and you'll need to pick one of your boxes on the mask as well for past or future.
Condition drained.
Yes. Yeah, no condition drained. So, Sir Craven, when you see like this sort of like immediately like flushed, panicked state that Mr. Harrison's in, how do you feel? Like, you've never seen him like that before.
Yeah, I think, as he's stumbling through his words, you see my face kind of get concerned. And as he kind of reaches that growl and moves off, Harrison, old man. And as I watch him go, Doctor, let me retrieve Mr. Eden's. I fear that Mr. Harrison has gone in pursuit.
Well, so you have some space here now. You have some alone time, Dr. McCarthy. What are your questions, first of all?
My first question would be, what here is not what it appears to be?
That's a good question. At first, you think that she's just wearing a particularly dark shade of lipstick, but the more you look at her face, you realize that her lips have blackened. And you also notice like black veins here and there. This looks like a poisoning.
As a follow-up, do I know what it is? Maybe I like put my finger onto the lips and like touch it to mine and such like that.
Yeah, or maybe even like smell her breath or something like that, right? If it was like ingested or whatever, I guess. So your follow-up question, you get to ask on a 10+, you can ask any question you want in the world. So what's your question again?
What is this poison?
Oh, good. The poison, I don't know anything about poison, so I'm just going to make something up. The poison is nightshade. And this plant is not freely available in Her Majesty's domain. It is kept by very by specialists, like horticulturists in universities, that kind of thing.
Interesting. I think I would take a sample. I don't know if I would be able to use it for the body, but I wouldn't mind studying it so I could make it myself at some point or something.
Are you going to try to take a body part? Is that the idea?
Yeah, but I don't think it would be for the child, right? Because it's all poisoned and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you could take something else for the child, right?
Yeah.
Just while you got them in it.
Yeah. Oh, but like, wouldn't the whole body not be usable because of the poison or whatever, though?
Well, I don't think you're gonna be able to get out of there with the body, right? I mean, you mean like I don't know. I mean, whatever. I mean, like you can.
Okay.
You're reanimating the dead. I don't know if poison.
I don't think. Yeah, I feel like the fact that it was poison is not a super.
Well, black veins is not becoming. But, okay. Maybe the eyes though. Maybe she has nice eyes.
Okay, nice. Let's read your child move. All right, Dr. McCarthy. When you acquire a new body part for the child, I might make you roll for that because like no one's standing watch for you anymore. When you acquire a new body part for the child, though, I think in the interest of just keeping the scene going, we'll let you just take them. Cross it off the diagram below and narrate a brief, pleasant memory of the person you lost that is triggered by holding this body part in your hands.
A brief, pleasant memory.
Yeah. So you can think about the person you lost. Can't tell us who they are, but you can show them.
Okay. So I hold them in my hands, and so I think we see a flashback from me sitting on a cot with a nun-like person ushering in a visitor, and they kneel to me and like pat me on the head in like a familiar sort of way, and they have the same color eyes as the ones that I've taken.
And the camera fades to show you like it's her eyes and it's these eyes in your hands, right? With the little wet red tendon hanging off the back of them, right? You can mark that on the sheet. There's a little you see it. Okay, so you got it. Good. I don't think I'm interested in seeing the pursuit of these two men. I think you're probably a little too drained to catch up with them anyway, Mr. Harrison. And I think this in medias res is wrapped up. Mr. Edens might continue smoking away. You guys got some clues. And now we would go to, after the night, we do, the phase is called the dawn. And in the dawn phase, the main function of the dawn phase is it's just a little interlude right before we get to the bigger, more central phase, which is the day phase. During the dawn phase, you would note if you didn't echo in the dark, but that's not applicable since we didn't do over scenes because it was just a little in medias res, so we don't do that. If anyone has moves that have dawn phase triggers, some of the moves are like during the dawn phase, you do this or that. You can do that. And then at this point, does anybody have dawn phase moves by chance?
I have the at start of a session for night work, but that might be better at night.
Yeah. No, that's at the beginning of the next session is when that'll start. The next thing we do in the dawn phase is I explain to you the goals of the upcoming day phase, and they're always the same, but I'm going to explain them anyway. The goal of the day phase, which is coming up, which is a major phase, several goals. Any or all of these are valid things to do during the day phase. To have scenes with characters for purposes of exploring your tensions. To have scenes with characters for the purpose of triggering the intimate move. The intimate move is one of the only ways you can clear conditions. To have scenes that show your playbook in action. Maybe you have a particular playbook move, or you have something you want to do as your character that that you want to show. To have scenes that further the investigation of threats. You can continue investigating things. Also, you can have scenes that are just like leisure, like just showing your character at leisure. That's totally legit. But the main thing, if you can do it, is to try to explore tensions, because this is one of the only times you get to like have control over whether you get credit for a tension or not. And so I would ask everyone at this point, think about it for a moment. Who has an idea for we might take a quick break, but who start thinking about like scenes you want to have, because the way the day phase works is you each request a scene. Like, I want a scene with this character. I want a scene to go do this. You request them, and then we kind of figure out where we kind of do them in an order that makes sense. So if you like want to specifically explore a particular tension, you might say, I want to request a scene with this character. You know, you could even say, because I want to explore this tension, right? That's totally fine. But be thinking about that. We'll take 5 and come back and do that.
Kevin, it's nice to meet you. I am glad to get a chance to play with you.
Likewise, thanks. It's Tyler. I guess we got character names, player names.
It's hard.
It can be a little hectic. It's
Yeah.
really it's awkward only knowing people through their characters, and then
I feel you. I have an eternal problem with names.
I have a tendency to print up everything, so I have like my cheat sheet of everybody's name and their character name.
Man with a plan.
That's it. I'm old-fashioned. I like paper.
So you guys have all played this before, huh? Or the prior versions?
Mm-hmm. We did a long play of it, and then I think we each, in separate ones, played a short run.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've played 3 different ones.
Oh, wow. I stumbled on, I think it was on his blog, but it had like some prior rule set and character sheets and such for it. And coincidentally, it was like right after I had started watching Penny Dreadfuls. Like I was like 2 or 3 episodes in, and I was like, "Oh my god, I got to play this! This is awesome!"
Nice. Yeah, Jason just started like posting and talking about the first games. I think within a month of us finishing Penny Dreadful.
Does it feel like Penny Dreadful?
Always, yeah.
Because of the feel of Penny Dreadful. Good. Or when Fraser gets back, we'll get going.
Sorry, I've been here the whole time. I just didn't have it on, I guess.
I just sat down. So, I want to point out one mechanical thing that I think this is a good opportunity to point it out before we continue with the day phase, and that is you may have noticed the die rolls are really rough. They are. It is all mathematically made to be quite a bit harder than it was in the alpha, but you have another tool at your disposal, which is your personal quarters. Whenever you can work one of those items into your narration, you get to roll with advantage. And so for just as an example, and I'm not, it's the first time you're playing, so it's not like I wouldn't expect any of you guys to pick up on this yet, but as an example, like when you were trying to bribe Mrs. Chang, instead of pulling out a coin, Mr. Harrison, you might have perhaps like pulled out, maybe like handed her a silver spur or pulled something, or say that you're pulling, you have this like little object from your steamer trunk that you took with you, then you would mark the steamer trunk and then you would get an advantage on the dice, right? So,
good.
So your tool that's in the game to mitigate the quite severe die roll constraints is to use your personal quarters items. So,
and
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Maybe because they played before, they didn't have this, but I couldn't see any reference to it in the mask. What is it? The past. When we check those off, it says narrate a flashback to your childhood this, or narrate. Is that just to myself, or at some point in the future that might happen, or how does that work?
So typically, you have the option of narrating it whenever you wish. But in practice, what has been kind of happening is it's sort of the last thing we do. Like we go through and we kind of like, set aside the main storyline, and then we have all the Janus Mask scenes start to happen, right? And because that's kind of how it would go in like the TV show version of this, right? Like towards the end of the episode, we would start to like see some of the backstory and some of that stuff, right? Flashbacks and crosscuts. So you have the option of narrating it whenever you wish. But if you want to wait till the end, I will call out a specific time for everyone to do it as well. So,
I had a quick question too, or rather, just a clarification. So, with the personal quarters items, is the assumption that unless there's some move that interacts with them, like they're one-time advantage use, and from then they're not?
From then they stay in your personal quarters, and they can still be used for fictional positioning, right? You can say, oh, I use my, I pull out my fake birth certificate, and that's my leverage that I have for whatever. You don't get a die roll advantage, but it's fictional positioning advantage, right?
I gotcha.
The die roll advantage, once you mark it, you only get one time on the die roll advantage with it. So.
And do you pick up more? How do you pick up more?
Well, it's not easy. Some of the moves give you some. The factotum does a lot of that, actually. You don't have factotum. Or if something just in the fiction seems appropriate for you to add to your personal quarters, we'll just do it. But there are some like specific moves that let you add them. So. All right, so cool. So yeah, just that little note, because that is different from the alpha, so the returning players even will not be used to that. So I just wanted to kind of call that out. And the day phase. So like I said, the way this works is you just request a scene. As long as we're all kind of in agreement that it's a legit scene to have, then we play it out. If you requested the scene and a tension comes up, you get credit for it. You can trigger the intimate move as well if it's just you and one other person. Anything that, moves can fire off like normal, like the day move can fire off if something risky is taking place. And these scenes can take place anywhere in the city. It's the day move, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the next day. It just means it's a day, right? So this could be like, our time frame is a little like, stretchy here. Like this could be 2 days after the night at the opium den, or it could be, a week after. It's kind of, we don't like specify it unless we need to. So if you want to show your character like doing something like, walking in a garden across the city, or, going to a fair or something, or whatever you want to do. But this is your opportunity to try to do tensions and to clear conditions with the intimate move. So, who has an idea for a scene they want to request?
I have one.
Okay, so what is your requested scene, sir?
I want to show myself being regularly infuriated by the behavior of Edens, and I'm going to be extra about it.
Okay, so where would you like the scene to take place?
I want it to take place in the picture, in like the foyer, close to the fireplace, lit from on top and from the fireplace both. And I have my shirt off, and it's like my shirt is like, or my ribs are quite bruised, right? So they look ugly and yellow and stuff like that. And basically I've like waited for Edens to come down or something like that. Like I'm waiting for an intersection for Edens to...
You're kind of trapping, basically, right?
Exactly, yeah. Like wherever you're going, you're going to see me because I'm in the foyer.
Are you cool with Edens?
Yeah. That's delightful.
All right, let's pick up with you walking down the stairs then. Role play.
My dear doctor, I did not mean to intrude upon your privacy.
Well, I'm just nursing a wound. One that perhaps might not have happened if you had followed my lead. It's made my skin blush. Can't you see?
Yes, but the accidental wonders of the world. Have you ever thought, these may well be your colors? See how the yellow, it really just highlights your hair and cheek structure beautifully. Perhaps you should wear it more often.
I like sling my arm around and put it on your shoulder and like lean heavily on you, and I'm like, I can hardly breathe. I don't think this is my color at all.
And I think he'll sort of like pull you in like it's a swoon. Oh, my dear man, if you can't breathe, well, here, let me help you.
I think the intimate move is triggered at this point.
Is that so?
It is so. Let's read it real quick. So reference sheet, intimate move. When you have an intimate moment with another player character, you choose two if you requested the scene. So Dr. McCarthy, you get to choose two. And otherwise, if you did not request the scene, you get to choose one, which means you get to choose one, Mr. Edens. So you guys can take a look at those before the scene continues if you wish.
Yeah. For me, my whole goal was to, at a meta level, my goal was to both heal the wound and be a dick. So how does this moment like lead to you feeling, like you're not being hindered by your bruised ribs anymore? I think what I do is I have like a cream or something, and I say the least you can do is apply it. I can barely reach, right?
Yeah, I mean, Edens will definitely take every sort of half suggestion you give and try and push it even further than you're comfortable with immediately.
Oh, great.
So it's like a slow massaging into your side sort of thing.
Are you unearthing a new tension here, Mr. Edens?
Ooh. Interesting, yeah.
And you can write them like you come from ground up or pick one from the list if it makes sense. But it sounds like there's some unspoken sexual tension going on in the scene.
It seems like it. I was going to choose They Do What You Want or They Get a Confession, but before I chose it, Patrick leaned in very much, but I'll still choose that. I think just because it made sense for what I was
that would have been what
for.
you would have. Yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah, it seems bad to metagame it now.
No, I think it's okay. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. Whatever. Well, but what do you think about it for your choice, Mr. Edens? Because you did get to choose one.
Oh wait, I thought you were saying I was unearthing attention. Who do we think?
Oh, you can choose from the list whatever you want, Mr. Edens. I was just suggesting this might be an opportunity to unearth attention if you want to choose that one, but you can choose another thing as well.
Do these violent delights have violent ends?
Yeah, I'll go with attention, I think. Something around like I think oh god, character name's my bane. Dr. McCarthy. Oh right, Dr. McCarthy. I think Dr. McCarthy is desperately yearning to relax and break free of the rigid self-control he has on himself.
And you will help him do that. Is that?
Oh yeah, I will. Yeah. There's the. Do you like that? Okay.
Yeah, I thought that's great.
That's a great tension. I'll write it for you if you guys want to just kind of finish up the scene here.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, he's rubbing it into your side and just it sort of stops the central rubbing in the middle. It's like if you didn't hold everything so tight, if you just relaxed a little, this wouldn't hurt so much. Oh god,
yeah.
I told you what kind of game this was.
I think it's that moment where, it's just being unearthed, right? So we have to build the tension before it explodes. I think I lean in quite close and the camera frames it so that our lips are about to touch, and then I move away and return to the rigid posture and stuff as I stalk away, probably up the stairs or something like that, as I'm not ready to quite yet break.
Nice. Let's just resolve the scene really quickly. I wrote that new tension as Dr. McCarthy is wound too tight. Mr. Edens will help loosen him up.
Lovely.
And I think, were you aiming for a particular tension to explore there, Dr. McCarthy?
And originally, I was going for the first one to show that I was mad at him. It took a turn.
Curated by I mean, I think you started that way. So if you want to initial that one, you can. I think that's fine.
Sure.
So you'll initial that McCarthy seems regularly infuriated by the behavior of Edens. Oh no, that's I think you marked the wrong one. And you put an X, and X doesn't tell us anything. Put your character's initials.
I did DRM.
Because I have you in the one below.
What?
Oh, you're doing. Yeah, I have you in the one that's McCarthy seems regularly infuriated by the behavior of Mr. Edens.
I put it in the wrong one. Yeah, you're right.
And it actually continues. So Craven must show them they are more alike than either of them wants to admit. But even exploring part of the tension counts as exploring it.
Yeah, so. we still have to introduce it to the fiction.
Yeah. Good. All right. Who else would like to frame a scene? Preferably someone who's not Mr. Edens, since Mr. Edens was just in the scene. Who has an idea to request a scene?
I think Mr. Harrison would like to meet with the good doctor.
Okay, sounds good.
Since
where will this be?
Well, he would if the doctor has like an office or a lab or somewhere where he is known that he does his work. That's where it would be, because as a result of the prior night's activities, I am currently drained. Yes, so I'm going to be in search of a pick me up, something to alleviate that. And I think because my character is interested in finding out what he's up to, I can hopefully accomplish those things or attempt to move in that direction.
Yeah, and one thing I'll point out is, per the mother's playbook, the lab where the child is being worked on is not in Hargrave House. It's somewhere else in the city. But certainly Dr. McCarthy probably has an office. So. All right, sounds good to me. Roleplay.
Okay. Doctor. I was wondering if you might have a tincture or something of some sort. After last night's pursuit, I find myself becoming very winded. I think it's my asthma condition flaring up again.
I kind of smile mischievously and go into like a cupboard and take something out and hand it to you. And as you look at it, it's like a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Oh, excellent! I'm quite familiar with this medication. I think this will hit the proverbial spot.
Mechanically, Jason, would I have something like that to offer?
I like it in the fiction. I think it's fun. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah,
I think it's good enough even for you to put in your personal quarters, Mr. Harrison. We got a laugh out of it. I think if you want to add that to your personal quarters, you should.
Excellent, will do. Let me just I'll get around to that in a sec. I couldn't help but notice that you were struck pretty heartily last night in action, and it might be a good idea if you keep your eyes on potential assailants. They will usually telegraph when they're going to be punched. I'm trying to give him a little self-defense pointer to help him out a bit.
I think as you're saying it, I like slowly take the bottle from you and uncork it and take a drink. I say, I'll keep that in mind. I'll be.
Yes, if they look to your left, that's going to be the arm that they're leading with, and you should move in the other direction. Just saying, we can't have you down.
It's true. Well, I've learned my lesson. I'm wheezing all of the time. Trust me.
Well, hopefully it picks the bottle up. This will help with my wheezing.
It's much harder to enunciate.
Good. I guess this was the intimate move.
Get each other.
Yeah, no, I think it was intimate. I mean, it was definitely a fun moment. Can be intimate. So you'll choose two from the list there, Mr. Harrison, and you'll choose one, Mr. or Dr. McCarthy.
So one would certainly be to clear the
drain.
Condition. Yep. So unearth. Okay, so that's a new tension. All right. So yeah. I kind of like you may ask the other player a question about their character, which they must answer truthfully and completely.
And note, this is not in the text you have, but this will be explained in the rules of the game. These questions, the answers can defy the cardinal rule here. This is the question that lets you defy the cardinal rule. Right? You can't normally do it, but in the intimate move you can.
Ooh. And with the way that would go would be, while he's seeking the medicine out, or opening his mini bar. I would say that takes a lot of schooling to become a physician. What prompted you to go into this line of work? That's no easy task.
Well, so long as you're raising yourself from nothing, you might as well shoot for them stars, right?
You must answer truthfully and completely.
Oh, so I need to reveal more?
You have to answer the question truthfully and completely. Whatever that means to you.
Is that complete enough?
I don't know. It's up to you, but I'm just reminding you. Platitudes may not be enough.
Right. I'll say, I'll expound a little bit. I'll say from when you're raised in the orphanage, there's no higher aspiration than the doctor that takes care of you.
Interesting.
Nice.
Okay.
Good.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you a question as well, but I'm wondering how to phrase it. Basically, what I'm going for is like, have you heard of Nightshade before? But in a coy way. I think I just like start spouting off sort of like doctoral things about Nightshade to see if I get some sort of a reaction and stuff. Because Nightshade is something to do with werewolves usually, right? From what I
think Wolfsbane is what you're thinking of.
Oh. Well, whatever. I want to know about Nightshade anyway. So
you could maybe like angle it like, have you ever heard of this family of plants? Nightshade, Wolfsbane, and so forth. I don't know. Like
yeah. I'll just word it like that. Have you ever heard of Nightshade? And then I'll say like, I had found it on the corpse last night.
And this is an example of one of those questions I need to answer completely or
truthfully,
truthfully,
whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can't be a lie. So.
Okay. Well, you would see I guess we maybe haven't partaken of. I'm not. My condition is not yet lifted, and I do appear a bit winded at that very moment. Whether it's due to the question or my condition, it's hard to tell. Goodness. Why would you Nightshade and Wolfsbane? I think those were used. I have heard of those. That's a very unusual substance. Is it relevant? Well, okay. I think some of the carnival workers I spent time with in the past were familiar with such substances and maybe used them.
I take like another swig from the bottle that I gave you, right?
let me change it to half a bottle of whiskey.
How much do you really need? Cut me a real piece.
Nice, good. Are we done here? Is this good?
I think
okay. So then, because I was sort of trying to find out what he was up to, do I then mark my initials in?
Yes, in that box.
Okay,
in the box of that tension track.
All right, got it.
Yeah, so
we'll get these mechanisms down eventually.
Yeah.
Yes.
First time we're playing, it's no big deal. That was a great scene, by the way. And I also, so the alpha players, they'll know that little asking the question bit is a different change in the rules. I think it's a good one. Like, I like that it kind of, you're incentivized to kind of like, you take it so you can learn a little bit about the character. So, great. Fabulous. And you get to clear your condition as well. Okay. We haven't heard from Mr. or Sir Craven yet. So, Sir Craven, do you have an idea for us?
Yes, I do. I'm wanting to. My intent is to have Mr. Edens and I going out because I've heard of this very dapperly dressed boy. I know that Mr. Edens probably knows of the finer tailors, especially those that would be doing more ostentatious clothes. I probably go to the same one my father and my grandfather went to, sort of thing. But as an actor, you would know people that dress flashily. And it has to be fairly unusual for a 12 or 13-year-old boy. So the idea is to go and kind of do an investigation because that might be something that's a little odd. And I'm hoping to hit that tension of your interest in Mr. Harrison.
I tell you what, I'll let you I'll let you two have the scene like before you get there, or maybe as you're going, if you want to like have a little bit of scene with just the two of you, and then I'll frame up one for you at the actual tailor. Does that sound
Okay,
good?
cool.
Yeah. All right, so this is like in the handsome cab on the way.
All right. Mr. Edens, I appreciate you going along with me. I have to admit, I do not generally go for such rarefied clothing. You're muted, my love.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Stupid with your internet thingy. No, I have noticed. But I think that everyone could get a good rejuvenation out of a new suit. You should try it sometime, you know. Something made this decade, perhaps.
Oh, Mr. Eden, you are always amusing. I probably will stick to what I'm more comfortable with, though.
You forgot charming and beautiful, but you'll learn eventually.
I have to say, last night, or the other night, at the opium den, seemed as though you were absent from the discovery of the cadaver as well as the rather unpleasant fracas that went on in that back hallway.
I think, like, as you mentioned the opium den, like his hand sort of goes to a coat pocket and just like doesn't go in it, just sort of feels the shape of something in his pocket as sort of a nervous tick. And he says, I was distracted, trying to gather information, anything unusual from the patrons of the fine establishment. Also, I mean, of course, someone's got to watch the door and make sure that ruffians don't... Something, I assume it was very important what I was doing.
Yes, I suppose we'll all make that assumption. You weren't the only one that seemed distracted, however. Mr. Harrison became quite overcome.
Mr. Harrison? He's usually so stoic.
I thought so as well, but when I discovered him in the hallway, I tell you, there was something almost feral in his eyes. The way he set off after those thugs.
Oh, I obviously not one to gossip, especially about dear friends and colleagues, but did you notice how familiar that woman was with him when he came in? I mean, I was willing to pass it off, but saying that, I feel like there was something in that house he was sniffing after.
Perhaps it would be an unfortunate thing if... Well, there's nothing much more debased than the opium addict. I remember when I was in India, suppose it that our people were there to civilize the place, the Englishmen spreading civilization across the unfortunates. And yet, the power of opium, the lotus, it was, well, tragic to see. Supposed to spread civilization, and yet the barbarism of the Englishman is so much worse. I suppose due to its refinement.
Here, thing, I would have thought as a proper gentleman, you would have been more offended by the American than the drug-addled British.
If this has gotten into our American friend, it is a pursuit that one very seldom gives up willingly. Perhaps we should keep an eye upon him.
Maybe he's stronger than you think. Maybe he's got the willpower to stand up to such urges.
I have faith that all my companions here at Hargrave have that sort of strength.
Yes. One just learns eventually how to live with such things. Not let them get over on you.
Indeed. Well, appears this is our first stop.
It's good. Very good scene. So what do you think about tensions there, Sir Craven?
I was trying to hit that. Yes. Eden finds the way Mr. Harrison, the ways of Mr. Harrison to be strange.
I think you definitely get credit for that one.
Okay.
And I think you were also sufficiently showing that you were haunted by your past as well.
Cool. All right.
I would take credit for that one as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, that was a very good scene. I do want to continue that with the Taylor. I want to give you two the opportunity to do that investigation. And I do want to give you a chance, Mr. Edens, to request a scene because you haven't done that yet. But because you're in a scene right now, I'm going to go to the other two and see if they have any other scenes they want to request. Because you can request as many as until I say stop, as long as everyone gets a chance to do one. So do either Dr. McCarthy or Mr. Harrison have scenes they want to request that cannot include the other two?
I just have a short flashback to do for the man.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So which are you doing? One of your Mask of the Past?
Yes, I'm doing. You lost someone very important to you. Who were they? Name them.
Yeah, show us.
So I think it cuts right back to the man with the same eyes who pat me on the head type thing, except like time accelerates very quickly between like a visitation sort of thing. And then after a few moments, myself as a young boy is like pressed against a window pane with like rain trickling down and stuff. And the man is walking to like a handsome cab or something like that and looks like quite well-to-do and such. And the nun type person behind me is saying, "I'm sure your father will come for you eventually, good sir," or little master or something like that, right? And then it like cuts back, like kind of like shakily to the present.
Yeah, so who was the person you lost there?
My father.
Your father. Okay, awesome. Great. I love it.
Maybe I should make another famous English name.
Mr. Harrison, you owe us 2 Masks of the Past. Do you want to do one of yours?
I think actually, based on the last scene, that would now be a good time for one of my flashbacks. I'm going to actually have to do 2 this session.
Yeah. So which one do you want to start with?
We'll go with the first.
Oh, they have to go in order. Sorry.
Narrate a flashback to your childhood that shows the high level of privilege you were born into. So this would sort of have been inserted when I said my asthma was acting up, or at that moment when I was seeking the attention. We sort of fade back, and you see young Harrison, a young boy, and in the room he's there with his parents. And there's a teacher, sort of like a private teacher there, and there's a physician there, and there's a butler of some sort, and they've got a book out for him, and he's like motioning at the book, and he's having this difficulty breathing, and the butler has this large sort of like bellows type device he's working, and the doctor's leaning over and listening to him, and they have this, actually the bellows are hooked up to this cigar, so when they extend it upward, it sort of draws the smoke in, and then they're pushing the cigar smoke right into his face, and he coughs and coughs and coughs, and the parents are gasping and looking all worried, and the doctor says, "Oh yes, it's working, it's coming along nicely," and fades right back.
I love it. It's great. Let's have that scene of the death of Taylor really quickly. So I assume you're going here to gather information.
Yeah.
Sir Craven. Tell me what your approach is. We'll fire off the information move, then we'll have the scene. So.
Okay. Yeah. The approach is really that we're going to hit these particular types of tailors that would have that likelihood of those sorts of clothes, with the idea that a youngster of that age, would be fairly unusual.
Yeah.
And, I'm willing to drop a coin here or there for a bit of information. Maybe pick up a jaunty scarf for Mr. Edens if he likes.
Pick up a jaunty scarf. I love it. That's great. Okay. So you will roll plus presence.
Presence, all right. Okay. Dice got taken out last time. All right, here we go. All right, that's a 7 plus presence takes it to an 8.
All right. You, of course, if you want to bump it up to a 10, you have the option with Janus Mask. But
we've had a bunch of those out. I'll leave mine for this time.
Okay. Yeah, so you're going to get to ask one question, but we can do it in the scene. So you're at one of these tailors, one of these, like, we'll say like a tailor somewhere in Hyde Park, very fancy, neighborhood. And they recognize you because you're a famous explorer, right? When you come in, they're like, "Sir, my goodness, Sir Craven, I never thought that well, Sir Craven Moore would be frequenting my establishment." And this tailor is like a kind of a short, well-dressed man, except he's not wearing a coat. He's got a white shirt on with sleeves rolled up, and he's got there's great big bolts of fabric hanging on the walls, and he's got one of those yellow tape measures hanging around his neck, the loose kind, and he says, welcome, Sir Craven and companion."
Yes, my associate here has been suggesting that I perhaps update my style, and I do very much value his opinion.
How are you dressed right now, Mr. Edens?
I think it's still sort of bright crimsons, but I don't know, a day out on the town. I think it's like an all velvet coat sort of thing. And he's still got the sort of throwback stylings in and around it.
Yes, but this is a very fashionable, somewhat vintage look, but fashionable. A very, very daring color. Are you going for a similarly daring color, Sir Craven? A vermilion, an aubergine, perhaps?
And you can see if he sort of stiffen up.
I think Edens will step in and sort of put his hand on Sir Craven's shoulder and say, "Sir Craven is daring in all things he approaches." I thought that would have been obvious.
Yes, true. I mean, one does not claim as much territory for the Queen as Sir Craven has and not be a daring individual.
Exactly. I believe we're looking for a real reinvention here. Something wild, something new, something eye-catching.
Yes, of course. I please step up, Sir Craven. Let me take your measurements. And while you're taking measurements, you can question him.
Okay, yeah, and I'm sort of stiff and probably cutting my eyes over to Eden. He's like, "What are you getting me into?" But as we're going, as he's dressing, and I have to say, I saw the most smartly dressed young man, remarkably young to be, honestly, setting such a fashionable tone. This gentleman, and I'll try and worm out, has he seen this gentleman? Young man.
When you say young, how young do you mean?
Could not be more than 12 or 13.
12? My goodness. That would be, well. And so what's the actual question you're asking, just out of character?
Yeah. What I'm trying to get here is who or what is most vulnerable to me, kind of angling towards how to get a hold of him.
He says, well, I have never seen such a boy, really, in my shop before, but I have, as of late, been making some custom suit jackets that would be fitted for a boy of that age, perhaps, for an address here in Hyde Park.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is it usual for you to address someone without having them come in for measurements?
Well, they knew their measurements, so I mean, I just make the clothes. There's no crime in it. Right?
Oh, of course. Who here in Hyde Park, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I don't think I owe them an obligation of secrecy. I'll give you the address.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. Mr. Eden, are you sure this color is exactly right on me?
Oh, yes, it really brings out the sort of strength of your features.
That feels like scene.
Yeah.
So the last person who has not had a chance to request a scene is Mr. Edens. Mr. Edens, do you have an idea for a scene you'd like to request?
I do. It's sort of it's a solo scene, sort of a mix between like revealing my past with Clary Yarborough and investigating some in her lodgings.
Yeah, I definitely want to know that answer. So frame it up. Where will we be here?
I think this is like this is like him like breaking in through the window in her flat sort of thing, sneaking in, because of course, like I don't want anybody to see me going in for multiple reasons here.
Yeah, I mean,
police investigations, poverty, that sort of thing.
Let's do the day move. This feels like a day move.
Okay.
So, the day move. When you do something risky or face something you fear, name what you're afraid will happen if you fail.
I'm afraid someone will see and recognize me going in.
Fair enough. Go ahead and roll with, I think it's probably composure, actually, for your nerves.
Yes. Oh, I don't know why I keep looking. Everything but presence is 0. Let's see. Oh. Jeez. That's my favorite roll. It's a 4.
You were doing pretty good at rolling that. I think as you are climbing into the window of this woman who was recently murdered in a particularly gruesome fashion, someone will call out to you as your leg, as you're half hanging out the window. This is a couple stories up. I think you're on some sort of like fire escape type thing. And it's a person wearing a long sort of beige trench coat and hat, Scotland Yard probably. And he says, now I do think it is somewhat unusual, sir, that you are entering that flat, not through the front door, but in a manner that I would describe as surreptitious. What do you say, sir? Unless you want to Janus mask it.
Yeah, I do want to get in there, so I'll Janus mask it.
That bumps it up to a complication. I will say that you get in fine, but you do hear down below. Well, we've just about got the crime scene wrapped up. You go ahead and tidy up here, and I'm going to go upstairs one last time, take another look around, even though we didn't find much to begin with. Let me just finish my coffee first. And so you've got a minute. So what do you do?
So yeah, I'm looking back and forth, sort of desperately, and I run to, like, she's a seamstress. There's like I think there's a sewing machine, sort of, well, maybe not a machine, but like sewing supplies over in a corner. And a couple of like
motions, we call those.
Yes, indeed. And I think there's several like boxes, sort of like, garment boxes stacked next to it, as in like things she's working on for different people. You can tell, like, even though this place is poor, like these boxes and the way they're wrapped up are fairly nice. So she must be very skilled to get like high class clientele. And he's digging through sort of just tossing the boxes to the side until he finds one that has a card on the top of it that's got the initials UE. And he sort of looks at it. Gets this like breath of relief over his face. He opens it up to peek inside, and there's like beautifully embroidered silk gown inside. He sort of holds it up like partially out of the box. Sort of notice it's like the similar size to him. But he's got to stuff it back in there and like run. But do I have time to?
Leaving it?
I'm leaving it.
Okay.
All right, no, I'm taking it. Sorry.
Yeah, you're taking it. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. You can add that to your personal quarters, by the way.
Cool. Do I have time for an investigation move on top of that, or do I need to get out before the?
I think you probably have to go. Yeah, if you spent your time looking for that dress you sent, I think you got to go.
Nice.
But you can't put that in your personal quarters, though.
Yeah, and I think I definitely leave a sort of obvious mess over in that sewing corner.
Nice.
In the spirit of a complication.
Good. I love it. All right, one last call for scene requests, and then we're going to go to, if there are none, we're going to go to the first dawn, or dusk rather, first dusk phase. We all good? All right. We'll do the first dusk phase when we get back. We're going to take a quick break. We'll do the dusk phase, and that's probably all we'll have time to for today. But let me just explain the dusk phase. That's a new thing for the beta. It's kind of an amalgamation of a few things we tried during the alpha. This is the sort of final version of what I've settled on. So during the dusk phase, also called Drinks at Dusk, is a scene where you're all together, and it's right before you head out for the hunt, for the nighttime phase. And basically, we show you in a room in Hargrave House, a different room every time. And I will ask you a paint the scene question about the room in question. And then you will each pick a tension. And if you wish, you don't have to. You'll pick a tension, and then you will describe how you are wordlessly exploring the tension. So something about the way maybe something you do with your movements, maybe you're playing footsie under the table or something, I don't know, but you do something wordlessly to explore the tension. And in the scene, you're assumed to be discussing your plans for the evening, but we don't actually have that scene. We just go around the table and you tell me out of character what your character's going to do for the night. But in the fiction, they would be discussing it, but we're not going to concern ourselves with the actual discussion. Instead, we're going to do wordlessly tension exploring and stuff like that. So we'll take 5. We'll come back. You guys are going to be in the trophy room, by the way, and I'm going to be asking you about things we see in the trophy room that are evidence of prior monster hunts. Okay.
So Tyler, you were saying you hadn't played Trophy but wanted to. Is that right?
Yeah, it looks amazing. Certainly hearing great things about it.
I've done it. I've done it twice now, and it's been a lot of fun. And I think I have a third one this Friday. Yeah.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, it's certainly getting a lot of attention. So I keep saying, golly, one of these times I'll catch Trophy. Fraser, I like your picture.
Which picture?
For your character.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I got my jacket.
But I really like that night jacket.
Yeah, I was like, but leather. Yeah, I have like a Pinterest open, and it's all just really cool Victorian buildings right now. Very cool.
Nice. Yeah, I love that entryway.
I don't know, Kevin. You can set your bandwidth down some.
Usually dropping and then rejoining the call fixes most of those problems.
We'll give you a minute.
Jay said, I've missed this. It was the thing that was missing from my life.
How's it going so far?
I like it.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, it's always perfect because you can always, like, when you think about it cinematically, there's always a scene to slot in somewhere. Like, there's never like stalling out.
I will say, you doing that that fail condition as adding an opiate addiction as a condition was a really neat way of like emergent character discovery in the middle of play. I thought that was very much in the spirit of the like, don't talk about your past until we talk about your past. Right. And it was like, oh, we're in an opium den. You have an opium addiction. And I took a moment. I was like, no, yeah, I'm okay with that. That's cool. Let's explore that. That was a cool move.
Awesome. So the dusk phase. The dusk phase is this another one of these little interval phases like the dawn phase, which we didn't really do because we weren't really coming off a night phase. But once we get going, it'll be these like, you have short little dawn thing and then the big long day phase, short little dusk thing, and then the big long night phase. This scene is a scene where if we were watching the movie of this, the scene would be all of you together in this room in the house discussing your plan for the evening, what you're each going to be doing. You don't have to do the same thing. You can all go do different things, but you all are just discussing the hunt, right? Discussing the investigations. And we don't role play that scene. I just have you tell me out of character what you're going to be doing. But what we do role play in the scene are the wordless transactions that take place among you. The stares, the glances, the touches, the accidental or otherwise, right? That help us explore the tensions, right? I suppose these can be internal things as well. Like if you like want to add a little bit of like internal monologue into like why you might be, this tension is kind of bubbling in your brain. I think that's okay too. Importantly though, there's no words can be spoken. And so first we'll talk about the room that the scene is taking place in. Every dusk phase takes place in a different room in Hargrave House, so we get to see all the different parts of the Hargrave House over the course of time. And there will be, in the rules of the game, there will be like instructions for this for the GM, how to organize this or how to present it. The first room that we're going to be seeing you all in is the trophy room. And I have a paint the scene question for all of you to answer. As the camera sort of pans around the trophy room and you're all sitting there having your discussion, what do we see that is evidence of prior hunts of Hargrave House? Maybe not even hunts that you all were involved in. Presumably Hargrave House goes back a ways, right? You are just the current residents of Hargrave House. But just what little trophies, what little objects, little items? Whoever wants to go first.
So I think Eden's, when he comes into the room, like his eye is caught by this glass sort of small cabinet case in the corner. It's sort of out of the way of the light, but the fireplace, you can see glints of it flickering. And as he gets closer inside the glass case, there's a mask, like an ornate golden jeweled mask of this sort of like a Greek tragedy face, a face in anguish and with like ruby blood tears coming down from the eyes. And as he's walking over to the corner, there's this sort of echoing, susurrus, sort of like whispering sound that just grows and grows. His hand is like reaching forward to the case of this, and the whispering like crescendos into just a clear voice right in the back of his head saying, "Eden's." And it shocks him out of the moment that he's in. He like pulls his hand away from the case in that way of like, I know I shouldn't be touching this thing. Backs away from it towards the light.
Nice.
Well, I have something less cool, but I was like, great, I'm gonna follow that. I think that as the camera pans around to show the room, we have like a really long table, one that has I can't remember what they're called, but part of the table sits below it, and you can take it out for when more guests come. I can't remember what the actual word is for. But as the camera pans around, we get a shot from below and upwards, and those parts are actually like show lacerated wood, like it's been splintered apart and stuff like that. And they sit underneath like that as a kind of repair way of that. It's like something huge must have scraped it across these things to ruin it.
Nice.
Kevin, go ahead.
When Mr. Harrison comes in, he's carrying a candelabra, and behind him, within a glass case, you see a skull, a green skull, and atop it is sort of like an old inquisitor's cap, and he stands there for a moment, and then as he steps forward to take his seat at the table, you can see that for a few moments the green skull sort of glows a bit in the now darkness before it fades to dark.
I love it.
And as Sir Craven comes bounding in, he's upbeat. He moves past it. We see all of these things around, but in one corner, a taxidermied, so mundane a goat. And so as we see Sir Craven walk by, the camera lingers on the goat and travels down the side of it to where it gets a front view. The other side of the face of this goat is the demonic human face. And the hair all down that side has fallen out, shaved. But carved into its flesh are all of these symbols left there by the tanner's arts.
Nice. Yeah, we turn that one against the wall when company comes. Good. And so your discussion amongst yourselves is taking place about what you're going to be doing tonight. In the middle of that discussion, I'd like to talk about how you are wordlessly exploring the tensions between you all. Everyone choose a tension. It doesn't have to be a tension of your own. It could be a tension of somebody else. But choose a tension. Tell me how you're wordlessly exploring it. And if you do, you get to mark your initials in the box. So, whoever wants to go first.
I was thinking that perhaps Craven is doing their stare out mode at either that club or at another object in here of the past, and I think we get that a sort of Hammer horror moment where the camera zooms in on you and the lighting is like across your eyes only, and your eyes are growing like wider and wider. And then I put my hand on your shoulder and kind of like do a squeeze type thing to bring you back.
Nice. You can initial that first one. Good job.
Lovely. I think I'll go if as you touch my shoulder and I sort of start out of it, we kind of notice that Craven is wearing that suit from the tailor, kind of as a nod to Eden's having helped out with this investigation, kind of because Sir Craven sees himself as the leader of this group, and that sort of idea of, I have to show the men that, you know, that their sort of efforts are well appreciated. But the tension I'm exploring there is the
second one.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I picked up on that. You can mark that. Nice.
I think Mr. Harrison takes his seat, and he gazes over at Mr. Eden's, and he sort of scrutinizes him a bit and squints his eyes, and then he starts fiddling with his glasses. Eventually, he tucks those into his pocket and pulls out the fancy monogrammed, silver, jeweled, whatever, exquisite glasses, and puts those on. And it's quite clear. You see a lot of the sort of wrinkles and tension in his face go away when these glasses are on, almost as if the other ones weren't even the right prescription or something. And I think with that, we're trying to address Mr. Eden finds the ways of Mr. Harrison to be strange and unsettling, but intriguing.
By being strange and unsettling. Intriguing. Yeah, that's good. I like
self-fulfilling prophecy there.
Indeed. You can mark it. Sounds good. Mr. Edens?
So I think as we're getting like deeper into the discussion of these dark things that we'll be looking into tonight, Mr. Edens has made his way over like next to the fireplace, and he pulls a small sort of tinder with a lit ember on the end, pulls it up, and he pulls out a pipe and like packs some tobacco into it and lights it. But like even over the smell of the fire, there's this like sickly sweet sort of floral incense smell, which I think Dr. McCarthy picks up on the like opium smell that's laced in there. And as he sort of like calms down and looks more, okay, we're gonna go out and do some stuff tonight. He's walking to the other side of the room, and he just casually, it just happens to be where he sets his pipe down is like right next to Dr. McCarthy's hand. He sort of winks as he's going by.
Nice. Which one was that?
That was number 5. I'm trying to get him to loosen up a little bit. Come on, party, man.
Yeah, nice. I love it. Mark that with your initials. And so now the last bit of business for the dusk phase is each of you, just out of character, tell me what you're going to be doing tonight. Everybody gets a chance to say what they're going to be doing. You don't discuss it. You just say what you're doing tonight. And then if anybody wants to change after they hear what everybody has to say, you can have an opportunity to change what you're going to do. But basically, you say what you're going to do, what you intend to do, and then I will frame scenes in the night phase. I do all the scene framing in the night phase. Note, I don't have to obey your wishes in the dusk phase. I'm just hearing what you want to do, but I'm still doing whatever I want in the framing. The night is mine. So let's just go in the order of the sheet. Mr. Harrison, what will you be doing tonight? Oh, you're muted, Kevin.
Sorry about that. Goodness, I'm trying to see what we have.
And it could be totally something like it does not have to be part of the investigation. I will bring the drama and the horror if you want to just do something mundane, right?
Okay. Well, there was an asset that Mr. Harrison was able to contribute to the house. This prostitute, I think. I forget her name, but it was on there. I was wondering, since we've got this mysterious child and beautiful women and such. So I was going to consider maybe tasking her with looking into this, or maybe asking around with some of her co-workers if this is someone that they're familiar with, and can maybe get us some information back from that.
I love it. So that sounds great to me. We'll go ahead and mark a resource, because they're an asset, so they will do it. And we can kind of like show, I think the initial scenes possibly could be like you talking to her or whatever, or and then we'll kind of play it by ear from there. Sir Craven, what will you be doing?
I've gotten that address, and I imagine we did a data dump of what we've all learned to a degree. And so my intention is to go and look to that house, see what I can find out about it.
Hyde Park address. Awesome.
Hyde Park, yes.
Dr. McCarthy.
I'd be interested in finding out more about Nightshade. So maybe some sort of like subculture bar type place where people know of these occult type situations or something like that.
Or maybe like university bar where a professor of horticulture might be
I mean,
tying one on.
If I have to deal with those people.
Investigating the Nightshade sounds like a good move. What about you, Mr. Edens?
I'm interested in the Dapper Boy as well, I think. I mean, I sort of got called out of, like, there's this kid that's consorting with all of the most beautiful and fashionable people in London. And that was said to me, like, to my face. They were looking at me when they said that. So I'm I'm not sure how that'll go, but I'm trying to catch his attention. I'm trying to be sort of fancy and out there.
I love it. So you're going to the Hyde Park address as well.
Yeah.
So now that everybody's heard what everyone's doing, does anybody want to change? I'll note that mechanically, Mr. Harrison, if you want to, you don't actually have to, like, the only scene you have to have with the asset is during the end of the night phase, during the dawn, where they just tell you what they discovered, unless you want to, like, take them with you during the night phase somewhere, in which case they're with you. But they can work on their own, or they can be with you in the scene. You get advantages.
Okay, then if that's the case, and this is an asset of ours, I would like to accompany her, because it seems that this is potentially a dangerous task, and she may need my protection.
Nice. Okay, so that sounds good. So basically, you're going to be going out with what was her name? I've already forgotten.
It was the same as one of your
Sally
other
Cartwright.
Okay.
Yeah, Sally Cartwright. So Sally Cartwright, you and Sally Cartwright are out investigating the streets of London at night. I love it. All right, so then I'll keep all that in mind. We will do a proper night phase, our first proper night phase, next session. I am owed some masks of the past and or future. Who has scenes they need to narrate? There's one from Mr. Harrison. I think we've got one from someone else too. I feel like.
I have one I need to do too.
I had two. So I did the first one, which was my flashback to childhood, showing how privileged I was. So I need a flashback to my youth, showing what an arrogant, willful brat I was. Or I were. I think this would also be nicely timed with that moment in the trophy room where there was the taxidermied goat. And we'll get to that in just a moment. So this scene is taking place on the deck of a ship, and there's we see a girl off on the side, and she's holding some bird seed, and there's a bird, like, sort of hovering above her, and all of a sudden, blam! You hear a rifle go off, and you see Theodore having shot the bird, and it falls to the ground, and she's appalled by this, and but no, Theodore, this was a beautiful animal, and he sort of bends down and picks it up and shows it to her. Well, no, yes, it was, and it still is, and when I preserve it, that beauty will be captured forever.
Nice. Good. All right, awesome. Who else? Mr. Edens?
Yeah. Sorry. So my first one is narrate a flashback to your childhood that shows how, even then, people were willing to suffer in order to make you happy. So I think this is a scene. It's like in a kitchen, a sort of like stone and wood construction building. It's Eden's like very small, young, sort of beautiful Eden sitting in a chair with like a sheet wrapped around them, around his neck. There's a like a servant girl behind him who's like cutting his hair, has scissors out, and it's just for obfuscation's sake. It's, everything is sort of poor and in the servant's world, so it's sort of hard to tell exactly when in the past this might be. There's a good long stretch where like the peasant classes all looked sort of the same. But the girl is like shaking a little bit, and like there's like a tear going down her face, and she's saying like I don't know, this doesn't seem like I don't know if they'll be happy with this. This is expressly, your mother said that, and Eden's just smiling and sort of like looking in a hand mirror. It's like no, it's perfect. It's wonderful. It's exactly what I wanted. Which is when like there's a shriek from the other corner of the room as a woman, Eden's mother, comes in and starts yelling, "What have you done, you stupid girl? What have you done here? Look at this. This is," and she's just like yelling at her, and she turns to Eden's and says, "Look, what have you done to her? What have you done to her hair? Eden, leave immediately. Go to your room." Just cuts there.
Nice. Good. All right. Let's do end of session questions, then we're done. All right. Mr. Harrison. You didn't highlight two. Oh, you did. You bolded them. No one's overcome the threat, so we'll just ignore that one. Did you stick out in London society for all the wrong reasons? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're meaning if you're meaning high society by that, I would say no. We really weren't he really wasn't in any high society situations.
But what about what's your case for the other then?
Well, I was going to say he did stand out as a kind of being tipped off that he had been.
Oh, you were
there in the opium den.
You went to the opium den. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you can mark an XP. Yeah, that works for me. You were definitely sticking out. Did you use violence to solve a problem?
Well, again, that sort of boils down to what that failed role was, that I had to use the mask. I pursued them, but we didn't really go into that.
Yeah. I think you were going to use violence, so I think it's okay. You can mark an XP. It was interesting to see.
Intent is 9/10 of the law.
You bet. Mm-hmm.
So two XP then?
Yeah, so you just mark 2 of your boxes. Let's go to Sir Craven. Did you use your loyalty to Her Majesty to justify your brutal behavior?
I don't know if I did.
I don't think you did. Yeah.
I wasn't really very brutal.
You definitely did the last one, though.
Yeah, I did my chilling dead-eyed monologue.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. You can mark an XP. Dr. McCarthy. You didn't highlight any Dr. McCarthy.
Have I said them? I remember what they were. It's the shoot down an idea that wasn't rooted in science and put my hands in the guts and loving it. Yeah. The eyes might qualify.
The eyes count. Yeah, it's in the spirit of it.
The spirit of guts.
Good. And then Mr. Edens. Your first one is, did you express a clear preference for the beautiful over the mundane? I think you definitely did when you were talking to that guy in the opium den, because you chose to sit with him because you said he was kind of good looking. So.
And I was also sort of like hinting at it with the paint the scene, where I was immediately drawn to like the most expensive shiny thing in the room, even though it was in the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you secretly show your vulnerable side to someone?
I'm not sure if I had quite got there.
I don't think so. No, not yet. All right, so mark an XP. And that's it. So what did everybody think? How'd it go?
Love it.
Love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. You guys
Good.
are
I'm loving
blessed.
this Duska phase. That's really cool. That's nicely done.
Yeah,
I like the interstitial phases. I'm excited about the personal items as well. Like I really want to get on that and start bringing them out next time.
Yeah, I want a way to get more personal items.
Yeah, there was one of the playbooks where that, I guess it was the sort of the servant type that
Factotum.
Yeah, the Factotum has several, like a lot of his moves like manipulate the personal quarter stuff, which makes sense because he's like the butler, right? So,
and the what we just did, the highlighting the questions is brilliant because it keeps you tight in archetype, but lets you like shift it and customize it so it doesn't feel samey every time. It's beautiful.
Is that something that will change each time? Like we'll pick two of our choice for that time? Okay, cool.
Yeah, the first one's always highlighted, then you choose the two you want to highlight. The things I'm most happy with, like having run a lot of the alpha, and this is the first beta, and then making changes and making the beta, I'm very happy with the dusk phase. I like the dusk phase a lot. That was like it did everything I wanted to do. I mean, you're all very good players, but it did what I wanted it to do, which was we got to see like a different part of their way of being together, like that sort of like very Victorian drawing room, wordless, like innuendo and suggestion. And then we also we got to see some of the house, which is great. And we acknowledged that they are having a conversation, but we did not have to get bogged down in the conversation. In the alphas, when I had you guys role play that scene, they were interminable. I couldn't stand it. So I was like, all right, these scenes are lasting too goddamn long. I just need to know what you're doing tonight. So
yeah, that's like having a scene dedicated to like the worst part of every role play game.
Precisely. Yeah. I mean, I knew right away I didn't like it when we were doing it. I was like, oh, well, this has got to go. I don't like it. But I like that. But I still wanted, like, there needs to be the idea that your characters do discuss and plan, right? And so I think this is a nice way of like acknowledging that while still having something fun to do, right? So I'm happy with that, and I'm super happy with the personal quarter so far. Even though you all haven't used it yet, I can already tell because I made the die rolls more severe. You have to use the personal quarter stuff to like have a chance on the die rolls, right? So that was an intentional design decision, and I'm liking it. And I also like that, like if you go back and you look at the just the list of your stuff, like there's already like fiction tied to all that stuff, right? Like we already know stuff, right? Like it's flavor, it's color, and it just kind of enriches it. So I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, success so far. Feeling good. Feeling really good. I will see you all next week.
Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, I'm done.
Oh, I was just going to ask, should I plan for 3 and 4?
Are you not presently signed up for 3 and 4?
No. I mean,
you definitely should. Who's signed up for 3 and 4?
That's Tomes.
Well, I'll talk to Tomes about it because you have to be able to attend all 4 of them. So I'll talk to Tomes about it.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, you should definitely plan to be there. So awesome. All right, I will see you all next time. Thanks.